Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nasuna Rebecca. I'm a programs coordinator, TWINE, Tulip Women Initiative on Nature and Energy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Achien Maureen. I am an administrator at APEN for Africa.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Katumwene Evelyn, HR, APEN for Africa.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Inspector of Police, Chigos Godfrey. I'm a medical clinical officer attached to Naguru Police Health Center 4.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assistant Superintendent of Police, Nursing Officer in charge Old Kampala Police Clinic.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Police, health worker attached to Kira Road Police Health Center 2.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Inspector Millie Grace Bwaiga, Deputy Chief Nursing Officer, Uganda Police Force.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
I'm Assistant Inspector of Police. I'm attached to Zambia Police Health Center 4, a health inspector.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Assistant Inspector of Police Mugureyo Van, Orthopedic Clinical Officer attached to SIU Chireka Health Center 2 Stroke CIA Headquarters Health Center 2. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
PC Ruhanga, attached to Ginger Road Police Clinic.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Corporal Grace Mulongo Joan Rachel from Chigo Women.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maud Fred, Principal Rehabilitation and Integration Officer, East Central Region.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mbalio Elenur, Principal Rehabilitation and Reintegration Officer, Uganda Prison Service.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Dr. Kajoba Charles Chimuli. I'm a medical officer and a public health specialist, and also heading the Maximum Security Prison Health Services.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
I'm Assistant Superintendent of Prisons, Justin Eyilu, Acting Officer in charge, Chigo Main Prison. Thank you.
Morning, members.
Morning.
I'm Dickens Asimwe from Uganda Police Force.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jacqueline Chihembo, a social worker in the Office of Welfare and Rehabilitation at Machon Beruzira Prison.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm ASP Frank Musime, Deputy Officer in Charge, Machon Bay Prison, Luzira.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Assistant Superintendent of Prisons, Dr. Mugalu Mark, in charge health at Ginger Main Prison.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assistant Superintendent of Prisons, Dr. Labo Agre. I'm the in-charge health services in the Chitalia Prison. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kennedy Ariaga. I'm a Senior Rehabilitation and Integration Officer at Kitalia Farm Prison. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Prisons, Simon Peter Sima,
Assistant Officer in Charge, Upper Prison, Luzira. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Woman Sergeant Vironj Catherine, Fleet Manager, Police Health Service, attached to Emergency Unit.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mugais Jamil, prison warder from Kitalia Farm. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Ongwana Godfrey, a clinician at CPS Kampala Police Clinic.
Good morning, dear participants.
Morning.
I'm Detective Assistant Inspector of Police, Waswariki, attached to Chira Road Police Station.
Good morning, members. I'm Corporal Kasaija. I work with the Emergency Response Unit, attached to Fire Brigade, Kampala headquarters.
Good morning, everybody. Call me Mazu Jocelyn, Assistant Superintendent of Police, attached to Police Health Service.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Corporal Kira Ramadan, the Zambia Police Health Center 4.
Good morning, everyone. I'm PC Kambasu Andrew, attached to Kawembe Police Health Center 2.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Oringa Masi Obin, attached to Zambia Police Health Center 4.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ipero Evelyn Docas, Police Constable. I work with Zambia Police Health Center 4.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tyra Janina. I work with Uganda Police Force.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Corporal Atugonza Margaret. I work with Uganda Police.
Good morning to us all.
Morning.
Robert Wambale is my name. I work under Police Health Services, Zambia Police Health Center 4. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Corporal Mukama Samuel. I work with Uganda Police Force.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sergeant Ochua Dennis. I work with Zambia Police Health Center as a lab technician. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm called Kakaemi, lab technician, work with Uganda Police Health Service.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Fine.
I'm also fine. My name is Sophie Caro Wanyenze. I'm a senior psychological social worker. I work with Kampala Remand Prison.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bena Asimwe. I'm a PLHIV and a youth advocate. I also belong to a movement living with a movement of women living with HIV in Uganda.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hello.
Hello.
I am Abaho Tumhare Daffin. I'm a person living with HIV. I am an HIV advocate. I belong to the movement of women living with HIV, and I am a programs manager at Center for Women Justice Uganda, and I'm glad to be here.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm Assistant Inspector of Police, Alupo Masi, working with Police Health Services, attached to Mukono.
Greetings, everyone. Ivan Nabdomba is my name, attached to Natete Police Station. Nice to meet you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Siddiq Ziad, working with Uganda Police Force at Nsambya Police Health Center 4 as in charge data. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Detective Constable Wanzala Anthony, attached to Gender Desk of the Kampala Police.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Corporal Atuhire Marion, attached to Nsambya Police Health Center 4.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Assistant Inspector of Police Onen Solomon, TB focal person for police, attached to Nsambya Police Health Center 4. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is I'm called Dr. Kisa Nicholas. I work with Uganda Prison Service in Luzira.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tuanjiro Godwin, working with Chigo Prison.
They finished? Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, you're very welcome in your respective capacities to this meeting. We shall now proceed with the first presentation, which includes introductory remarks, and this is going to be by the project coordinator, Ms. Ayebare Proskovia. Ms. Proskovia, you're very welcome. She's the one who has been in charge of the Global Fund project in the office of the DPP, and this is really her brainchild. So she has a lot for us this morning. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Jackie. IT, can we have it displayed for the rest of the people who are not accessing the laptop? Good morning, everyone. Yes, bear with me. I have been sick. I don't know if I have COVID or what, but here I am to serve as I am. So it's a presentation by me. Madam Jackie, our PRO, has already told you. My name is Ayebare Proskovia. I am an attorney with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, where I have worked for now 24 years. Yes. I deserve a medal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a meeting of middle managers. For lack of a better name, we should say foot soldiers of the criminal justice system. We are here to update ourselves on how far we have come and how far we have gone, where we are coming from and where we are going. The start of this project pursued a rights-based approach to end diseases within the criminal justice system. For us to achieve this, we had to look at what interventions can we take and in which institution. So several interventions have been taking place. Some of you have participated, others are high level. We hope that they will trickle down, and others are ongoing, like Uganda Police Force. So we are here to update ourselves for what you have known and what you have not known about the project, using human rights as an approach to end diseases. In other words, can we ensure the human rights of the people we work with, of the people that we serve, in order for us to end diseases within the institutions of the criminal justice system? That is the project we are going to look in this presentation at the introduction, overview, of the initiative, the progress update, what needs to be done, ongoing efforts, and shall have a conclusion. This project aims to ensure prevention of diseases, for example, tuberculosis. It is by understanding our own work environment. When we speak of Uganda Police Force, if we take the arm, if we maneuver through our system, we begin with the arrest of the suspect from his or her community, which community we don't know whether we are meeting there TB or not. Let's stress using TB. It is much easier, and it was the inspiration for this writing. If an officer has gone to arrest, how should they go? Do you just go bearing in mind that you have a right to protection as an officer at work? Equally, if an officer has tuberculosis, you have gone to arrest an offender who is safe, does not have TB. Must they get it from you? Then when we look at how we handle them at police, the room does not expand each time the suspects increase. So we find that suspects have been increasing over the years, but we still have same lockups, same size, same space, in spite the population growth. That means that for us to survive in that environment, there must be measures to be taken. And therefore, at the Uganda Police, we originated an activity for screening, compulsory screening. There is a difference between screening and testing. Compulsory screening means asking you questions. Where are you coming from? Did you leave your mother coughing at home? How long has she coughed? Those things that can inform us that probably there is something to deal with. That is the screening. And then, of course, some of you are doctors and know better than me. But we need to differentiate so that if there is any BCJ or of BCJ here, does not take us wrong, that Uganda Police Force is forcing people to screen. No. We are not forcing people to test for any disease. We are screening them to know how best to handle them, how best to help them, and also protect ourselves as the workers in the criminal justice system. Treatment both in prison and Uganda Police Force is taking place. It's true, Uganda Prisons is ahead of Uganda Police Force for reasons that Uganda Prisons has had a lot of support compared to the Uganda Police Force. But we have forgotten one thing, the spread of the disease. Initially, when we were making this intervention, many people argued that let treatment remain at prisons. Police only is just a gateway. They sleep there for 1-2 days and they have gone. But that is the time, the 1-2 days is the time when they spread the disease. So we said no. Screening, testing at entry point. And so it is at such a small scale. We are only in, Mr. Kamugisha, how many stations are we handling in Uganda Police? 16 stations that we started with. That shows you that the program is peaking. We are hoping that in the next cycle of funding, they can still fund this activity at the Uganda Police Force to be able to screen people. Care and support services. Now, care and support services goes with treatment. It should start from police, then police will refer to prisons that we are sending you a person with these indicators. And so you, when you receive the person, even when you're taking them in the bus, you know how well to position them. For example, if one has TB that is not yet managed properly, where do I sit them in the bus? Those things. support services. Of course, it goes to feeding. Is there water? Is there food for a person who is on medication at the time they need to take medication? We all know. Then we have the issue of Uganda prisons, of course, with food. And when you transport people to court, there is some management to be done. May not be for us, but the top managers, I believe, are taking it up. Also care, upholding human rights. Uganda Prisons now has taken off with a program for upholding human rights, but by sensitizing ourselves, that is at Uganda Prisons, and also through peer education or peer educators. So a team of peer educators, the trainers of trainers team of 34 persons was passed out the other week. And we are hoping that they will be implementing that which they learned. There is also a manual to enable the Uganda Prison Services have both continuity and uniformity of this service. It means, therefore, that one who has been trained can train other prisons officers, and the prisons officers who are warders at different wards can also, out of the catechilos and the other teams, the names you give them, the chairpersons of each cell, you can make other peer teams among the prisoners, so that the prisoners can give feedback to the warder. The warder can give feedback to maybe the in-charge health services, so that these people, we can know their problems and be able to solve them. The manual also caters for the social aspect, to make sure that we deal away with the stress among the Uganda prisoners and help them to understand that they are not condemned. It's a correctional time. They can do it and finish it. And when they go back, society expects them to be decent citizens. To that end, that would be informing the main goal or the mission statement of criminal justice, that we are striving for a criminal justice system, or we are striving for Uganda that is free of criminality. The only way we can do it at our end is that each person we receive, we touch them in such a way that when they go back, they are better people. We don't expect them to come back the way they are doing these days. Those who work in prisons, Uganda police, and even prosecutors, you must have noticed that there are people who are almost habitual offenders continuously. They want to be in prison, you can easily put it, than being at home. What progress has been made further? We are striving for strengthening of the legal framework. You have heard that we have in the House the Uganda law reform, and we have been working hand in hand with them to amend the sections of the law which otherwise the communities that live with HIV have guided us, and we have accepted that such sections are stigmatizing. And where there is stigma, ending HIV is far away from reality. Advocacy for amendment has been done. Several meetings have been held with the Uganda parliamentarians, the running parliament, and we are hoping that they have heard our voices and they will touch the respective sections. Decriminalizing behaviors related to HIV, TB, and malaria, so that we don't have to criminalize the diseases, but rather the crime. We focus on the crime than what disease one is carrying. It may not, after all, matter. People do not do what they do because of the disease they carry. We would be looking only at the surface, but we will miss the point. Behind every crime, there is an intent, and it should be that intent that we should look for and punish. But I do not think that the disease has anything to do with such an intent. A man who murders today, a man who rapes, a man who defiles, a woman who defiles, would have defiled with, without HIV. We are also looking at reducing stigma and discrimination. The reason I talked about the training manual, the stigma and discrimination in the criminal justice system is largely among the prisoners in Uganda prisons. It becomes difficult for them to take medication. I usually refer to, there was an MP arrested, and when he was talked to at Uganda prisons, he submitted for testing. He was tested positive, HIV positive. And the man was in denial for a very long time. He nearly died in prison. Who works from that new prison? It's called what? Chitaria, the beautiful prison. Yes, when you reach there, you think you want to stay until you see prisoners. It is such a well-built institution. Yes, I've been there. I have visited them. So we are trying to see that at Uganda prisons especially, you have a continuous program for prisoners to sensitize them against stigma. If we can do away with the stigma and people are taking medication at Uganda prisons, then there will not be multiplication of diseases coming from prisons now back to community. Ensuring access to justice and legal support. We are working with several organizations, Uganet, TASO, International Women's Community East Africa, and these coming to ensure that persons who otherwise would fear to come to justice, for example, a defiled child who is HIV, they are already stigmatized and would fear to come to testify in court. So we lean on these organizations on work that we cannot do. For example, we are not able as prosecutors to reach out and say, well, if you have HIV, it is no problem. We may not do that. But Ichwea, Uganet, TASO, they have specialized services to do that. And because they associate with such a problem, so people listen to them very quickly, and if we brought them on board properly, they can help us to bring many people to access justice, even if they are sick. And they also give legal support, like Uganet gives legal support for people who cannot afford, but if they are suffering from HIV or are affected by tuberculosis, and therefore the origin of the problem is the stigma. Training and capacity building, this is one of them, to help us to understand that there is actually a problem. Yesterday, I attended a meeting and I was a bit embarrassed. The gentleman who is a parliamentarian, who we have ever trained and taken through this program, was at a panel with me, and he submitted that he does not see any problem with the law as far as criminal justice is concerned. So I felt we had not done much, and probably sensitizations must continue. I had now to remind him, didn't we talk about this? Didn't we talk about this? Doesn't it affect this way? He said, oh, when you talk like that, then I knew that the workshop had been wasted for some people. So let us not be like that. Let us try to, if you don't understand, there's going to be a session for asking questions. Why not? We ask. If you ask those who met me before I came into this program, and I thank the NGO world for speaking to me and continuously speaking to me until I had to change and understand them. It's not easy to appreciate that a man of 30 years who is HIV positive has defiled a girl of 80 years. You say, moreover, that your man is HIV. Can't he see the old women? Why didn't he go and talk to them? But like I said, that's not the issue. A man who defiles an 8-year child when he is HIV positive would have done it even without HIV. So when we focus on HIV and leave the intent, what makes this man do such an outrageous act? It's what we should be punishing. It's what we should be looking for. But when we focus on the disease, then we lose the point. Madam Piara, oh, we have Mr. Tio in the house. It's not my responsibility to introduce him. You will do the honors probably after the presentation. Yes, we are talking about the capacity building, and we are saying, as criminal justice system, we are losing the focus when we focus on the disease than on the intent. The intent, what the person intended to do, what is at the back of the mind that is driving them, is what we should be punishing, and not the status of their health. Yes, progress is a state of hopelessness that one would not want to meet with. So we perceive them like that, we understand them, and therefore we come to their aid to give them psychosocial support, to talk to them. I am happy that you have systems, you have, they are called justices of what? Yeah? Justices of peace, through which the prisoners can reach. You also have social workers, the prisoners can reach their people, but of course, it's not enough. And so, we have to love them. If I use that word very well, we have to love the prisoner. Since for us, we are not court which is going to decide, let's just love them. Treat them with humane attitude, so that at the end of the day, we know that they are going back to society and it will come back to us. They are part of us. So what if we harden them so much, we are hardening our own society. If we soften them and show them that they are still useful, we are making a better Uganda. From just managing integrated services, we have moved from just managing HIV as HIV. We have known that there are other things or other diseases that actually can affect any person in prison or in our services as an employee and also as an offender or as a prisoner. Like I talked about tuberculosis. And so integration of HIV, TB, and malaria services is now the in thing. You can't speak about and avoid the others. So they both must move together so that we have a complete and healthy person amidst us. Excuse me. Prevention, healthcare systems within the criminal justice system. We are trying to put healthcare systems that are human rights sensitive. You see, sometimes people may not take medication because they are stigmatized, but it is our duty to make sure that they take the medication. We understand that they are stigmatized, and we put systems that destigmatize them. For example, at the Uganda Police Force, we are using referral forms, and we have given them different colors. Not that we are changing the government referral forms or medical forms, but we are changing just colors. So those who are trained to handle will understand that when I see color pink, it means this person has this problem. If I see white, it means I want the prison staff to take it up with immediate effect. If I see blue, it means all this. It's not, you can't have it in one training, but they are specialized training to teach us about those colors and how to use them. So we are improving the healthcare system from our own perspective, knowing our own environment. And so trying to put healthcare systems, to touch the healthcare systems in a way that can improve the systems. Like I said about the phones, and also about the training manual for Uganda prison staff for peers. All these are touching the healthcare system, but at each stage, we sat down and said, what is most needed, what is most needed at the Uganda Police Force, what is most needed at the Uganda Prisons Service, and what is most needed in the office of the DPP, what is most needed at the judicial level. And so when we do these sensitizations that are showing us what is most needed, we speak to each institution specifically. We have services like prevention, testing, treatment, and support services. Then we are trying to strengthen coordination between healthcare providers, law enforcement, and community-based organizations. That speaks for itself. Those who are here doing the introduction, you must have heard also the NGO world is in the house. We are doing community engagement. We are specifically engaging the communities living with HIV. You have heard the national chairperson is in the house. We are also engaging general communities. I think 2024 is going to be so much of reaching out to the general public. Well, I cannot explain even more about the importance of engaging affected communities. Like I said, if you have never been a prisoner, it's very difficult to be in their shoes. If you have never suffered from HIV, without even looking for it, it may be very difficult for you to explain to others the pain that it brings on board. Involvement of community-based organizations, planning, implementation, and monitoring programs. We have tried to plan together. We have also tried to implement together, but I know that there are very big gaps for us to bridge. And the program is still going on. We have been promised by the Global Fund, and we are hoping for the best. Tailoring services to specific community needs. We have also tried that. Like I said, we said at police, we need a policy for screening and cancelled or pre-cancelled testing at Uganda Police. But at Uganda prisons, it is the management of the mind. And so we have gone into peers to make sure that as people come to your house and churn out, when they come in, you receive them, they fit in a particular peer group. When they are going out, they go as reformed human beings to be accepted by the society. So that's what we mean by tailoring services to specific community needs. Then we want to look at how do we manage transitioning of suspects through the prosecutor's office, the judicial officers' chambers, if, for example, they are sick. And so we are hoping that we can have services like masks, maybe in those points, hopefully, that the policy can be accepted. What needs to be done, therefore? From what we have said, there should be a lot of data to account for what we have done. Data monitoring and evaluation has been very weak on our part. And because we don't have the means, and when we say the program is human rights powered or related, then I don't know why in Uganda, when we speak about human rights, people are up in arms. Human rights, as long as you are a human being, you have rights. And human rights are not bad per se. It is how you perceive them and how you want to implement them. But probably because some people have abused our societies in the name of human rights. And so it has given us a bad name somehow. When you speak of human rights, people see you as a person who is cantankerous. It's not so. Human rights are part of us. You are because you have a right to exist. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So it's just part of us, but we need to manage our rights. And moreover, they are enjoyed within specified ambits. It can't be your human right and you leave your work that I have a right now of movement, so you even leave your office and just to move bila mpango. You can't do that. So since we have the ambits within which we enjoy them, why do we fear human rights? Which even connotate that they have also, as long as you want to enjoy your right, you must not abuse the neighbor's right. Isn't that the principle overriding, moreover? That in the enjoyment of your human rights, you must not disrupt the other people's enjoyment of their own right. Importance of a robust monitoring and evaluation mechanism is very, very urgently needed. Key indicators, access to our services, treatment outcomes, stigma reduction, these things we have done. But these things we are not able to show to our donor, for example, that this is where we were before you supported us, and this is where we have reached after you have supported us. So I'm hoping that in the next implementation, we can have these built up. Data-driven program improvements and accountability, that's what it would bring about. Then scaling up best practices. We are not able to pull out which ones are our best practices and which ones did not work. So if we have data collection, if it is boosted, then we can be able to know what worked and what did not work and what we need to do. Identification of successful approaches and interventions, that's what it is. Scale up across regions and countries. Now, if we have a practice that has worked here, Kenya doesn't have to struggle. TZ doesn't have to struggle. Southern Sudan doesn't have to struggle. They can just pick it and map it in their own system. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That people are coming here actually to, you call it what, to benchmark. It would be very good that people are coming from world over to benchmark. And I want to tell you one secret. We are the first ones in the whole of Africa to implement a rights-based approach to end diseases. Moreover, in the criminal justice system, we are the first ones. And so people should be coming here one of these years to benchmark. So we have to go out and up our game. If we have an activity, we work in our small ways to make sure that it works, it is visible, and so we can account for it. And that way, Uganda wins the admiration of the rest of the world. Sharing best practices, lessons learned, and innovative strategies. Of course, we cannot be the master of all trades. We are expecting feedback from you, especially in the 16 stations that are implementing the program, and the program within Uganda prisons that is beginning to take shape for peers. We are expecting feedback. Feedback, you show us, you say, in this training manual, you should have included this. Or when we use it, this is what we lack. It can work best at Ruzira if we added A, B, C, D. You need to come and see the OC. OCs should have been sensitized first. Those things, we want to hear. Those things, we want to get feedback from you. And sharing best practices, what worked at your home and what did not work. This would help us to address the unique challenges of individuals within the criminal justice system. Therefore, we need to do a lot of advocacy and policy dialogue. That is at the both top level. Policy, we dialogue for policy, especially for the top managers of the 4 institutions, so that they can understand what we are up to. Advocacy efforts to raise awareness. I talked about it, to reach out to the community, so that the communities, the general public, will understand that once I interface with the criminal justice system, this is what I should expect as far as my health is concerned. Policymakers, donors, and the general public should be brought on board in order for us to be able to achieve. For donors, we need the money. Policymakers, we need the policy and acceptance of the program. And for the general public, we need the demand for them to ask us, you said you would give us this. It's that should drive us to deliver a very good program. Fostering supportive environments. When we understand from each other what all of us are doing, we know we are not each other's enemy, and therefore the environment becomes very supportive. Securing sustained funding for the initiative. Once we convince the donors that this is delivering, we should be able to secure sustainable funding. Maybe even the donors can multiply, who knows? Ongoing efforts. Government, civil society, health providers, and stakeholders have all been approached. This program is directly managed or supervised by the Ministry of Health, and therefore we go under their guidelines. Civil society have been brought on board because they tell us the society feeling or thinking of what we are in the criminal justice system. Health providers, like some of you are also on board, and many other stakeholders. Protecting, promoting rights and health within the criminal justice system is one of the ongoing that requires collaboration. We need a lot of collaboration from different NGOs and from different stakeholders. Each of us can bring somebody on board so that we speak one voice. In conclusion, therefore, we have what it takes to do better in the area of health within the criminal justice system. We have organized institutions, we have good leadership, and readily available support, both internal and external. Internal, I mean our leadership, institutional leadership, and external, I mean the communities that I described above, together with the donor world. We really have them in our support. We just have to be organized and use the money properly, as it were. I therefore want to thank the donors, the leadership of our different institutions, all stakeholders, for example, the parliamentarians, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Health, Uganda AIDS Commission, Uganda Law Reform Commission, TASO, NAFOFANO, and all the other partners. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Proskovia, for that update about the Global Fund project against HIV, AIDS, TB, malaria in the criminal justice system. She has highlighted to us the aims of the project, the key areas, the efforts, and the milestones. And I would like to take this opportunity to ask us to appreciate our various institutions for what has been done so far in light of the project. So a round of applause. And a round of applause to Ms. Proskovia for her presentation. Thank you very much. So now we are going to go on to the discussion, And with us, we have two presenters, apart from the one who has just been speaking. So please permit me to invite them to the fore. We are going to have the chairperson of the National Organization of People Living with HIV, that's Ms. Beatrice Were. You're very welcome to the fore. We are also going to have Ms. Geraldine Akubu. She's the Assistant Commissioner, Law Reform Commission. Joining them will also be Ms. Proscovia Ayebare, Senior State Attorney, and also Global Fund Project Coordinator. Now, I am going to request the presenters to introduce themselves one at a go. Let us know who you are, your designations, and anything more that you'd like us to know about you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Beatrice Were. I am so many things, but I'll summarize the most critical that will guide the discussion later. One, I am a woman who openly lives with HIV. I have lived with HIV for 31 years, and I do not hide it because it's purposeful to support other people, to know that you can live and be meaningful. Two, I am the national chairperson of NAFOPAL, which is the national network of all organizations of people, the national forum of all organizations of people living with HIV. I'm only a week old, so it's a new role for me, and I believe that I will do my best in that role. I am proud to be the first woman chairperson, female chairperson, so I would like to give it all as a woman. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is that I have worked with PROCI in these spaces of this work, but mostly as a board member of UGANET, the Uganda Network of Law Ethics and HIV. So somehow I'm a bush lawyer. I know things around the law a bit. Through that kind of engagement, I can say I'm a bush lawyer, so I know some few things about the law. But I'm a renowned activist on issues of HIV, particularly as they affect women. That is where I really lean most, because I chose to transform my personal experience into a brand of activism that really speaks out on issues that affect women. Finally, we started a new movement, considering that HIV is with us for a long time. With a few colleagues of mine, we started a movement of women at 40, that's how we run ourselves. But it's really an effort to bring back the voice of women living with HIV, because it had gone mute in this country. So we are reviving that voice and rebranding, and we are also mentoring young women to take up the mantle. As those of us who started it are growing older, we would like to leave a vibrant team of young women, and I invited some of those young women to be in the room. I'm sure you heard them introducing themselves. Daphne and Lena, they are right behind there. So that is some of the work that I'm doing. We are mobilizing young women to take up the mantle. So it's not women at 40 in age, but it's 40 years of HIV in Uganda, and we would like to have that voice to continue. and I am again the chairperson of that initiative. I want to thank you. It's long, but that's who I am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's good to know who is right before us. Miss Geraldine.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Mine will be much shorter than what you just heard from Beatrice. My name is Geraldine Akubu. I work for the Uganda Law Reform Commission. I am an assistant commissioner at the commission. I have been involved in this area of HIV and legislation for a very long time. From the time of the drafting of the current act, I was actually the lead person behind the drafting of the act. And I'm excited to be involved in this phase of reviewing of the legislation, because coming from where we came from, when we started that process in 2010 to where we are to the act being enacted, we have seen it at work being implemented. We have seen the opportunities, we have seen the challenges that have come with the act in operation. So I'm excited to be part of the process to review the act, to see that we have a law that better meets the needs of the society in Uganda. I don't know that I want to say any more than that at this point, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Geraldine. And now we have Ms. Proskovia. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, you've already heard my name. I am Evare Proskovia, working with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions as an attorney, and I have worked in different respects, and I have also worked with both international and national organizations. At the international level, I have worked with the United Nations Mission in Eritrea and Ethiopia as a human rights officer. I have also come back by decision to come back to my mother institution, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, to prosecute, but also to cause a change using a human rights approach. I have appreciated human rights, and I have known that other than an agitating arm, the way it began in the West, it is actually a development engine if we properly manage it. And I am here to offer myself for both country and for self-satisfaction, that I reached that which I desired deeply. I am the innovator. I have been implementing this program since 2017. You have been told. I have learned from them, truth be told. I have learned a lot from them, and I have learned to be softer. It's not easy for a prosecutor to say, well, the victim has a problem, but even the accused person has a right to enjoy. I look forward to a health reformed criminal justice system, and I pray, as you pray for me, that the Lord God will give me both vision, wisdom, and energy to execute the task at hand. I have enjoyed a lot of support from both our top management, that is at the Office of the DPP, and the top management of Uganda Police, and the top management of Uganda Prison Services. It is overwhelming, and for me, even the sky will not limit us. And I am happy today to discuss the questions of the law and how they affect the delivery of criminal justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Proskovia. So now, it's a pleasure to have distinguished presenters. As you have heard, there are people of distinguished caliber right before us. We are here this morning to discuss issues of the Global Fund project to combat and control 3 diseases mainly: HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria in the criminal justice system. Our dear presenters, we know from your experiences and from how you have described yourselves and the work that you are doing a lot in relation to this area. So we would like to hear from you about what you are doing and the experience so far, what you see in the future in relation to this Global Fund project. So we're going to give you an opportunity to make presentations, brief presentations before we go into the plenary about the Global Fund project and your respective areas. We will start with Ms. Beatrice Were.
Thank you so much. The starting point is for us to acknowledge that AIDS has been here for 40 years. As a country, we have struggled for 4 decades with this epidemic. And there are things that we have learned over the years. Remembering the first phase when we were in shock as a country, then we moved into a bit of stability when we had gotten information about what to fear and what not to fear and what to do and what not to do as a country. And we've gotten to a stage where we are now with the good news that there is treatment that can make a person living with HIV live longer and a meaningful life and healthy. For instance, a person like me, you wouldn't know unless I told you. So that is now what we are seeing. The unfortunate bit is that we have, while the good news is there, as a country, we have become so despondent. It's like it's normal now, it's okay. We look at the bullet, the tablet that we take as a magic bullet. And we have slackened on certain things. We have slackened on prevention. We have slackened on the things that we should be doing to sustain the good news. And for me, that's a big concern. So we need to know that as the criminal justice system, that it is a concern, it is something we need to be aware of in everything that we do, that it's not all rosy. We also know as a country that there are many people who are now being tested, and after they have been tested, they just disappear. They don't take a step to take treatment. For reasons we do not know, but also for some reasons we might know. The other thing also is that there are people who are tested and they take a step to take treatment. There is that number. Out of the over 1 million people who are infected, that's what we know from statistics. That those who are tested and take treatment are there also, but the challenge is there's also a number that does not keep on treatment. They take treatment, they feel better, they stop. And that's dangerous, because when somebody stops treatment, it means a number of things. The first thing it means that they are going to become resistant to treatment. And when they become resistant, they will need a second level of treatment, which is going to be expensive for the country. But also it means that when they have unprotected sex with a person who is not infected, they will infect that person with a virus that is resistant to treatment, what we call the first line, the treatment you start with. That you who is infected by that person, who has absconded from treatment, you're going to get a strain of a virus which is going to be more expensive to treat. Your options will be limited. The other thing that we know is that there is a number of people who are on treatment and keep on treatment religiously. I am glad to be one of those people. And when we take treatment religiously, what happens is that you suppress the virus so much in your blood to the point that you cannot even infect another person, even if you had unprotected sex. That even when you get pregnant, you won't infect the baby that you are carrying. So number one and number two, the ones who test and disappear, The ones who test, start treatment, and stop is what we should be concerned about. Because it means among them are mothers who are getting pregnant and having babies and infecting those babies. It also means that among them are men and women who are infecting other people out there. And we need to be concerned about that as a country. Otherwise, our aim and our quest in ending AIDS by 2030 may not be attained. So we need those facts, because we work with facts when we are addressing issues of HIV. What else in terms of linking it to tuberculosis and malaria? Tuberculosis, we know, is treatable, but it is also preventable. So is malaria. But if a person has HIV, their candidature for malaria and TB is very high. Because when you have HIV and you are not on treatment, it means your immune system is so weak that should you get tuberculosis, then you can't battle it. Your immune system is not resilient enough to fight it off. So is malaria. So we need to understand that these three diseases are a burden in this country and that we need to do something about them every time we interact with people. And more so in spaces like prison, where people sometimes are congested. We know the realities in our institutions. But also, we need to know that with tuberculosis, in order for you to be cured, you have to keep on treatment consistently until it is cured. Again, with tuberculosis, we have a number of people who start treatment and stop before it's completed, because they say, I'm tired. But you cannot tire until you are recovered. That is where I wanted to start from. So coming from civil society, these are the remarks I want to make to this audience. Number one, as civil society, as NGOs, we complement the role of government. We are not the key duty bearers, but we complement what is done. As institutions of the criminal justice system, you are key duty bearers because you deliver on behalf of the state. So our role is to complement you. Unfortunately, what has happened with HIV and TB, civil society, in my opinion, has taken the burden. The burden has weighed so much on our shoulders for all these 40 years. We have really done so much. We have carried these diseases on our backs from the beginning when things were so bad until now. And I am very happy, Pros, I must say, I am very happy about this program, that it is actually demonstrating the key role that the government should be playing. As the QDT bearer, you are playing a fundamental role, and personally I would say it relieves that burden from civil society. You're taking what you actually should be doing head on. So in our complementary role, what do we expect from you as the criminal justice system? Or what are our perceptions? Speaking on behalf of civil society and the community. Number one is for us to be aware that as an institution, as institutions, that HIV, tuberculosis and malaria has not spared your institutions, particularly HIV, because there's a lot of stigma attached to the disease. But we know that HIV has reached all institutions in our society, be it religious, be it workplaces, be it whatever institution you might talk of. There is somebody within the institution, even before you think about the inmates, there is a workmate who is struggling somewhere, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know if they opened up, how they will be treated. They are struggling. And we do not know also what to do. Because once somebody builds a wall around themselves, even when they are struggling, you don't know what to do. And sometimes we find ourselves talking about them because we don't know what to do. And that is an issue that we need to be mindful of, meaning that our institutions have been affected in such a way that they cannot be operating business as usual, that we have to find a way of doing things differently, but contributing to the national goal of ending AIDS by 2030. Because that's a national goal. And we also have the presidential commitment to make sure that that goal is attained. So in whatever we do, we should be aware that we are contributing to the bigger goal, even by just helping your friend and showing them what to do. That you are contributing in a way. By helping your relative, by helping whoever, you are making a significant contribution. I would also like to say that you need to be cognizant of the power that you wield. For us as community, as civil society, as omuntu wawansi, the people in the periphery, people who are not like me, who knows what your role is, because being a social worker and being in this work, I mean, I wouldn't be intimidated talking to a lawyer, a magistrate, a prison warder, or a policeman, whatever level. But for somebody who is struggling, I want you to think about the person in the periphery, an illiterate woman who does not know what to do, and she's told, you are now being taken to police because you infected somebody knowingly. You lived with this man when you knew you were positive and you did not disclose, and now the man has opened a charge against you for intentionally, because that's what is in the law, intentionally transmitting HIV. What do you think that woman is going to do? One, you wield a lot of power. Just for her seeing that uniform of a policeman, a prison warder, is enough to make her panic. We have people in this country, even when you just tell them, come and just give a statement at police, they will disappear. That fear, the power that you wield, cannot be underestimated. So civil society and community, as civil society and community, we perceive you as institutions that wield power. And power that we get, that we only come to you when we are in trouble. Okay, na police. Hey, wakoze chwabie. That's the perception. When you say I'm going to police to get a letter to do a BCD, be careful. Those policemen are not a joke. Things like that. That's what the community believes. That we only come to you when there is trouble. That the one thing that you are going to see at police is handcuffs. They do not imagine that you can sit with a police officer and have a cordial conversation. So that power, how do we deal with that power in the context of HIV, in the context of TB, in the context where you have gotten me, I have been arrested or brought to you for any other reason, not necessarily HIV. But I also want to tell you, to whisper to you, that as you take me, officer, I also need to let me go home and pick my ARVs, because I may take long in the cell. How do I whisper that to you? Because I'm already overcome by the fear of looking at the power that you wield. So that's important when you're handling any case, to be mindful of the power and what's running in the mind of a community person, or in the eyes of civil society, how we see things. Because if you don't do that, then this person is going to be off treatment, and those problems I talked about will happen. They will not suppress, and it has an effect on the bigger community. The other thing that I want to mention, to raise to you, is also to understand that in whatever you do, in whatever you handle, that you are aware of the law. I do not know, Prosi, if everybody in the room is aware of the act. Sometimes we assume. You know, people are too busy even to read the whole thing. Even for me, who works in HIV, sometimes it's too much. There's too much literature. But I would like to encourage you to read that law and to understand it well. Sometimes it has been abused. I have met people where people have taken advantage of that existing law. And I was sharing yesterday, there is a man I met from Kayunga who was sharing about his sister, they were in a discordant relationship. Discordance, I hope we know what it means, is where you have one person you are a couple, but one tests positive, the other tests negative. That is also happening. And what happened in this case, it was the woman who was negative, who was positive. and the man was negative. So when he was tired, you know how people get tired of these relationships? When he was tired of the relationship, he has seen a young one who is more sexy than Mama Wabana. Then what does he do? He uses the law. He wants her out of the house. And the woman is like, how? This is our home. This is our matrimonial home. She's legally married. So what he does, you know how our system works, and I don't want to say that it's everyone, he bought his way through some police station near their home, and what they did is they intimidated the woman. You must get out of the home because he's going to take you to court for intentionally transmitting HIV because you are positive. So you want to intentionally transmit HIV to him. Because the woman didn't know her rights, because she was illiterate, because again of the power again that you wield as a policeman, and also the power that the man wields as the head of the house, the woman had to go away. She said, instead of taking me to court, instead of taking me to prison and I wrote and leave my children, it's better that I go away. She went away with her 4 children. She did not know her rights. So we need to understand this law and apply it properly. And apply it with sensitivity, but also apply it with knowledge so that we know that in HIV there are these dynamics of couples that may be discordant. So some people are beginning to abuse that law. And it's important when we understand this law that we should address crime as crime. And one of the things that law reform is doing is really to review the law, because as civil society, we are concerned about the contentious aspects of the law. Within the law, we have 3 bits that we are concerned about. The first one is the clause that criminalizes you for intentional transmission. And Pros will talk more about that. That when I know my status like I do, that it means that when I'm in a relationship with a person who does not know his relationship, not necessarily that he's not positive, but the person that I'm in a relationship with or in contact with, whatever contact might mean, whether it's a person who works on my hair in the salon or the young man who takes care of my compound like the one I have at home, that if that person takes me to court that I intentionally want to transmit HIV to them, I have a case. Knowing my status does not mean that I intentionally want to transmit, that I should be able to tell that person. So it is a very challenging situation that when you are dealing with the law, you need to be mindful about. The other clause we are concerned about is also the issue of disclosure, mandatory disclosure in the law as it is now. That when you know your HIV status, that when you are tested in hospital, and mostly it's us women who are victims of that because we are the ones who interface with the health facilities more during antenatal. And now we have a policy of test and treat. That is a government policy by Ministry of Health. At any point when you go for treatment, you are tested. For women who are expecting, it's much easier. So when I'm tested during antenatal and I'm told, Beatrice, you are positive, it's incumbent upon me to disclose to my spouse the law, that is in the law, that I should disclose. And that when I don't, within a certain period of time, the doctor or my health worker is empowered by the law to disclose to my husband or to my wife. That is a challenge, and that is bound to bring what we have seen in a number of cases. It brings gender-based violence. It brings problems at home. It also infringes on the right to privacy and confidentiality. But it is in the law. So as you are applying the law, because you are now human rights conscious, you need to be aware that there's a problem with the law, that it violates the fundamental human rights of this very person that is before you. But in some cases, people say, no, me, I'm a police officer, I'm supposed to follow the law. I don't want to hear your stories. You human rights activists, you have too much kimbele. That is the attitude we get. But now that we want to have a criminal justice system that is centered on human rights, we need to be aware that the law as it is violates the fundamental human rights of the criminal, or the suspect, that is before you. Because for some reason, it was passed the way it is, but as civil society, we are in court, we are trying to see that this is overturned, that these uncomfortable clauses are repealed. What is important is to address crime as crime. If I have raped, if say I was a man and I have raped, rape is rape. And you know this better. In the penal code, rape is already taken care of. Take me as a rapist. But don't use my HIV status to again become more harsh and treat me differently, because rape is rape. The other issue is, I talked about applying science and human rights. We would expect you as a criminal justice system that as Prosi has taken you through this project, we expect you to be officers that will apply science and human rights in your work. Because in HIV, in malaria, in TB, in public health, we apply science. We don't apply emotions. And it is important to keep abreast with the science. And what do we know today about, in terms of science, where we are at with HIV? I have already told you that we know that when you take treatment so well, you reach a level where you cannot transmit. You are not cured, but you cannot transmit. That is what has helped a country like Botswana to beat this epidemic. With Botswana now, you don't see babies born with HIV because people are encouraged and supported to take their medicine well. In HIV language, we call it U is equal to U. U is equal to U.
Sorry.
When you are, sorry?
No,
Oh, it's the time.
No.
It's the time?
Almost.
Okay, I'm almost there. So when you suppress, you become suppressed, so you cannot transmit. That's what we mean in simple language. Okay? The other thing is treatment without interruption, which I talked about. We expect that you will support inmates to keep on treatment and to have that treatment uninterrupted. That when inmates come in and they open up to you that they are on treatment, that they are on ARVs, that they are on tuberculosis treatment, malaria treatment, that you will support them to cope with treatment, because there's a lot going on when you are an inmate. You are worried about your sentence, you are worried about your family back home, you are worried about so many things. And for me, when I'm so stressed, I actually sometimes remember my medicine at the wrong time. So you can imagine when you are an inmate, you might end up not taking your medicine in the morning or completely forgetting. Now, you having this knowledge now, you can see you have a role to support what we call adherence. To adhere, to keep on treatment and keep on it well. The other thing is that we expect you to respect and keep the dignity of inmates. That even when I have HIV, I should be treated with dignity and respect. In some cases, you go in a sirimu, go kole misango, yeba nange. Those are that attitude. I'm not going to say where I see these things, but you and I know that they happen. Or in a sirimu, or in mwenzi, atawa ye kumkaza asidi, kati gwe tukolereji. What should we do for you? How much suffering do you want? Why are you disturbing this country? That attitude, please. Let us respect. Keep the dignity. I've come in because I've committed a crime. Now my HIV has become a public thing. And my wenzi is also a public thing. Please, let's respect the dignity of inmates. I have talked about enabling adherence. Confidentiality I have talked about, and not being judgmental. I I want to specifically talk about the group that I have so much passion about, women and girls. We suffer in a different way. You find, I was at one of the police stations very close to us here, which I won't mention. I had gone to do other things. And then this young girl came in, she had been raped. It was obvious her stuff was, the dress was dirty, and they needed, what is that form, Prosi? The
PF3.
So she was asking for that form, and we have it at Uganet. I kind of like wanted to interfere with the process and say, we can supply you with the forms. But the police officers, there were two ladies. Look at how you are dressed. Why were you moving at that time? What's wrong with you girls? But we are losing time. And I'm like, do they realize that she needs to go for PEP? We are losing time. Every minute you are spending, scolding and telling her all these things. She's running out of the time to have PEP, for heaven's sake. That we waste a lot of time on judging and harassing and being so, because we believe we are very pure. So let's think about all those things, because we now know the science. We know what can make things better in this country. And I wanted to finish by saying, again emphasizing, that please use your power in a manner that helps inmates to cope better and to keep on medication and to enjoy their life to the full, even when they have HIV. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beatrice, for that presentation. What we need to take note of, she says, apply the law with knowledge and sensitivity. Observe human rights. And then she says, treat suspects with dignity, with respect and dignity. I hope we have taken note of that. She has also highlighted issues to do with the law. I believe Ms. Geraldine will tackle that in her presentation. Please allow me to introduce and welcome Mr. Milton Tio, who is the Director of Correctional Services, Uganda Prison Service. You're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. We shall now move on to Ms. Geraldine, the Assistant Commissioner, Law Reform Commission. You seem to have many issues to do with laws relating to HIV/AIDS. Now is the time to let us know what the Law Reform Commission is doing about these issues.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know where to start because Beatrice has already incited, I won't say violence, but at least she has no trouble as such. She's opened our ears to, she talked about us knowing about the law and the provisions of the law and the importance of us knowing those provisions. Maybe I'll take us back a little bit and talk about some of those provisions that is important for us to know.
Maybe Ms. Geraldine, you can tell us the law that you're talking about, because maybe not everyone here appreciates what the law is, and Ms. Beatrice said you must know the law. What is the law that you're talking about?
This is the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act, a law which was enacted in 2014.
Yes.
Yes. The problematic provisions of the Act really are the ones that deal with mandatory testing, deal with the issues of disclosure, and the provisions that specify offenses within the Act. So the Act, the mandatory testing provision requires the testing of a victim of a sexual offense, like the victim that Beatrice was talking about. It requires mandatory testing of a woman who is pregnant. That is why when we go to the hospital, usually for antenatal visits, we are required, and we are told that it is compulsory for us to be tested. That law also requires compulsory testing of a partner, of the partner of the pregnant woman. That is why many times, not many times, always, we have to go back and bring the person who is responsible for the pregnancy. It requires testing of anyone under a court order. The court may order that any person be tested for a matter that is before the court. It requires mandatory testing of a child who has been born if the mother of that child is HIV positive. And it also requires the testing of anyone who is apprehended for a sexual offense. All these categories of people that are required to be tested mandatorily, they all come with different issues and different challenges. They present with different issues and different challenges. The other problematic provision is on disclosure. The Act requires that the HIV status of a person can be disclosed. One of the principal provisions in the Act is confidentiality. Now, the Act requires confidentiality of people who are dealing with persons who are HIV positive. And then on the other hand, it goes ahead to require compulsory disclosure of information to a guardian of a person, if that person is a child or a minor or a person who is legally not competent to receive this information. For instance, a person who is having mental health challenges at the time. It requires disclosure of HIV status of a person also to any medical staff who is directly involved with treating a person. So if, for instance, a lab technician has carried out a test and is aware that a person is HIV positive from the test results, the law requires that person to divulge that information, which ordinarily should be confidential, to a person who is treating, directly involved with this, the treatment of this person who has tested. The law also requires mandatory disclosure to any person who is exposed to the bodily fluid of a person who has been tested. That throws it wide open, because this could be just about anybody, as long as that person is going to come in contact with the body fluid of a person who has been tested. And the other category is that information should be disclosed to any person who is HIV positive, Sorry, disclosure should be to any person who is in close contact to a person who is HIV positive. The definition of close contact has always been out there. It has been a bone of contention for a long time. It is in the Act, and this leaves a wide array of people. It places an obligation on so many people, on the lab technician, on the doctor who is treating this person, on any other person who knows about a person's HIV status, to basically disclose to anyone who is in close contact with this person. And this could be a spouse, it could be a partner, a sexual partner. This close contact is supposed to be contact that makes it possible for this person who is HIV positive to transmit HIV. Now, the disclosure provision, as we all know, is very problematic. It has been problematic from the time when we were carrying out consultations for enactment of this Act. It has been controversial throughout the 10 years, 9 years really, that the law has been in operation. Then the other provision that is contentious is the provision on offenses, which allows for breach of medical confidentiality and disclosure of HIV positive status of a person. Then the big one is the one on intentional transmission of HIV. So it puts a burden on any person who is HIV positive, that if they transmit the virus, the burden really is on that person to prove that they did not have the intention to transmit. But there are many problems with that transmission, with that particular provision, as Percy will I'm sure mention something about it as well. And then the provision on offences also puts a lot of responsibility on health practitioners and other persons that are providing health care services, basically with informing people about another person's HIV positive status. We have been working with as I mentioned, the law has been in place for 9 years. It's coming to 10 years, will be 10 next year. And it has been tested. There are so many challenges that have been identified during implementation of this law. And as a Law Reform Commission, we have of course been following the discussions around the issues, the challenges, because it is our responsibility also to monitor the implementation of a law in terms of how is the law itself, how is it functioning, is it meeting the objectives for which it was passed. We have been in consultation with the ODPP as well as other key stakeholders to find out where the challenges with the implementation of the law are. And the idea is that we make proposals, make recommendations for amendment of this law. What we are looking to do is, and then the other thing also that Uganda as a member of the East African Community, we have obligations to ensure that our legislation is in line with the legislation, with our regional obligations as well as our international obligations. And Uganda's act is contrary to the EAC Act, the EAC HIV Act, specifically with regards to the requirement for mandatory mandatory testing and disclosure issues. We are aware as a Law Reform Commission that we need a law that is rights-based, as Beatrice was speaking to. We need a law that is rights-based, and have to, going forward now, as this was at another meeting yesterday, going forward we have to carry out comprehensive consultation with all key stakeholders on both sides of the coin, and including stakeholders like yourselves, the people who come into contact with people every day, including people who are affected by this legislation, HIV positive people who are on the other side of the law, and to help us to identify the different challenges that that you identify or that you come into contact with every day in implementing this law. These consultations should include public dialogues, should include consultations about obviously about the controversial provisions. The consultations will also include fora for building consensus on recommendations that we will identify. There's a task force, a committee that has been set up by under the leadership of ODPP, that is being facilitated by the Global Fund, under Global Fund, and we have been carrying out consultations and carrying out research to pick out the problematic areas, obviously, which some of which we already knew, but also others, and to see what the legislation in other jurisdictions is. How can we, in the legislation, make right the wrongs that was done in 2014 when that act was passed? And then from the consensus building workshops and meetings, we will validate also findings and proposals for amendment of the HIV and AIDS Act. We also look to carry out a process of developing principles, legislative principles. We will need to carry out, to prepare a regulatory impact assessment report, which is a report that is required for any legislative, for any new law that is being proposed or amendments to any new law. We have to provide an impact assessment report. That is a requirement from Ministry of Finance to know, so that we know before a law is passed what the financial implications of that law will be. And then from that point, we will need to have advocacy with our legislators and sensitize them about any proposals that we are making for amendment of the law. And at that point, we will leave it to them. From the perspective of the Commission and the perspective of the committee that is doing undertaking review of the law, the goal really is to improve the approach to HIV prevention and treatment, and to have in place a law that is progressive, that is rights-based, and looks at the interests of all the parties that are involved. At this point, we have extracted the key recommendations, and we are at the point where we are good to start drafting and start wider stakeholder consultation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Geraldine, for your presentation. Let's appreciate her for that. Okay. She has highlighted us on the contentious HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 2014. She has highlighted the contentious issues and also made us know that the Law Reform Commission is doing something about the problem, to address the problem. Perhaps she'll let us know later on how long this process is going to take before we have the amendment during the plenary. Thank you once again. We are now going to move on to Ms. Proskovia Ayebare, who is also going to make her presentation. I'm sure she's going to talk about the ODPP and ODPP's contribution in the Global Fund project. Ms. Ayebare, you're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Jackie, and good afternoon once again. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I need the Holy Spirit to prevail. I'm going to make this approach as simple as possible, and my intention is that when you step out there, you can be advocates of the change that we desire. And so in my approach, I'm going to look at this law, the HIV and the law. I'm going to look at them in as far as the criminal justice standard of proof is concerned. You can take your notes, standard of proof. We are going to look at the victim-oriented approach. We are going to look at the East African Prevention and Management Act in comparison with the Uganda's HIV Prevention and Control Act. And then the other things will be largely of peripheral importance. So, standard of proof as required in the criminal justice system. Madame Geraldine has told us that the HIV Act charges one who is HIV positive. Should you be found involved in a sexual offense, then your offense is aggravated for reasons of being HIV positive. But here, ladies and gentlemen, is the challenge, the standard of proof. In comparison with the science, the way they have told us that you can take your medication and reach at that point where you're non-infectious. So a man who comes to court or a woman who comes to court and says, I've been on medication now for 4 years religiously, I verily believe that I cannot transmit. can we successfully charge that man or woman under that law and sustain the standard of proof beyond reasonable doubt in the face of science? It is your question to answer. If I was the lawyer on the opposite side, I don't know how I can lose this case. But as it is, when I go to court as a prosecutor, as of now, before Geraldine gives us an amendment, I will say, this is what it is, and I will prove that you had intention. But is it easy to prove that intention? Is there a measurement that at the time that you slept with me, there could have been an infection you were transmitting, you were capable of transmitting? What about those who use other preventions like condoms? What about those who use other preventions like pre-exposure, whatever it is, that one, which you take before sexual intercourse, that you may not be infected or you may not infect? Do we have machines in Uganda that can check and say, at the time now you slept with me, you had not taken that medication? How do prosecutors win these cases? May I even wonder? Yes, the standard of proof is very clear, beyond reasonable doubt. So we are saying that faced with science, our act becomes redundant. The section for intentional transmission cannot hold anymore. Science has overtaken it, and therefore the law should be amended to fit within the standards of science as well. That is standard of proof. The other one is victim-oriented approach. The approach in criminal justice is victim-oriented. At police, every police officer wants to speak with a complainant. It is the accused who is largely abused and harassed. The prosecutor will do the same. The judicial officer may not show, but you can even see the tonation in court when they are addressing, when they are addressing the accused person and when they are addressing the complainant. You note that all of us are victim-oriented. And so, if we are victim-oriented, who is the target of this law? Is it the accused person, or is it the victim of the sexual offense? I want to give you a scenario of where a child of 10 or 11 years, let's say 11, they have begun to be sensitive about society. It's defiled by a man who is HIV positive. And we come to court the way you have sat here today, and we are reading the charge. You, Ayebare Proscovia, while knowing that you were HIV positive, did have canon knowledge of the child so and so. What is it saying? They are saying that the child so and so has been infected. Isn't it what we perceive in open court? Yes, that's what we perceive in open court. So I want us to understand that at this point, when we read that charge sheet in open court, may be disguised the way they have begun. I do appreciate that now names may not be mentioned. The children can be called R, can be called Z, but we know we are in open court. Sometimes the child is there and the lips are pointing at the child. That is the one. Nange, labe chisajja akana chekakute, labakana, nange. You get that. There is one canon who used to work in Masaka, was later transferred to Mbarara. I'm telling you a story that really disturbed me. And when in Mbarara, his daughter was defiled. When the daughter was defiled, the man had been HIV positive. And so because the court was in the same community, after they read the charge for the offender, for the accused person, the child went to school once and refused to go back. What was the reason? Stigma from other pupils. And so the father, having worked in Masaka, he had made friends. He brought the daughter to Masaka to come and study from Masaka. But I want to challenge us. How many parents in Uganda whose children are being defiled by even HIV positive people can afford that luxury of transferring their child from one community to another in order to enable them find their life and be on their feet? Aren't we better off quiet about HIV and try defilement and try rape, as it were, without mentioning the status, the health status of the person? The other one is the economic question. As government institutions, we are called upon to help in the development of the country. It is therefore incumbent on us to find those outlets, the leakages that take away the money of the economy and prevent at our specific places of work those linkages or links. If I say linkages, it's not connections. No, it is letting out. Those pipes that leak and leak the economic power that would otherwise come back to us. So we want to make analysis. If a person is taken to prison and is stigmatized in our environment, they cannot take their medication. And yet we cannot take away their manhood. An HIV-infected person still feels the same way a non-infected person feels sexually. Therefore, the fact that we are not able to kill their sexual capabilities, we should know that they will come back, they will sleep with other people. The more reason we should be careful to treat them properly when in prison, so that should they come back and sleep with another person, they are not infectious. And if they come back when they are infectious, it means if they had been on drugs the way Madame Beatrice explained, they have now gone away from that regiment, they have to go on a higher regiment. And each regiment you raise, it becomes more expensive. And who buys HIV drugs in Uganda? The government. So the money that would go into educating our children, the money that would go into making the roads, the money that would go into other social services is spent on HIV. Global Fund gives Uganda billions of money, but 99% of that money goes into what they call commodities. What are commodities? HIV drugs, TB drugs, malaria drugs. That is what we are spending on. So, aren't we better off as institutions who know that we have a high burden, facing it squarely and having these people treated, do away with the stigma, do away with the law that stigmatizes the children, do away with all kind of things, lack of proper feeding. Isn't it time we dealt away with those things so that even when we have people who are HIV positive, they can take their medication properly and they can live positively and non-infectious, and therefore contribute to the economic development of our country. That was the economic question. Then the East African Prevention and Management Act in comparison with the Uganda HIV Prevention and Control Act. You can even hear the titles. The East African Prevention and Management Act of HIV and the Uganda Prevention and Control Act, the control business that we are in. I will not go into specific sections, but let us discuss generally the relationship between East Africa and Uganda. The East African community to which we are a member has written their law or have written our law, and they have called it the East African Prevention and Management Act. In that act, they have In Uganda, it is only the Ministry of Health that has adopted the approach of the East African Community Prevention and Management Act. And in our national plan, which we are implementing now for Ministry of Health, it is indicated that management of HIV, it does not include criminality. It includes sensitization, prevention program, that is sensitization, education, and counseling. The three. It does not include anything like a controlling arm of the law. It is not there. And they are adapting it from the East African Community Prevention and Management Act. That act has also dictated that all member states subscribing to the East African Community must not have in their law any law that contravenes the theme of the East African Community Prevention and Management Act. So, as we speak, our law is not law. The East African Community Prevention and Management Act dealt away with it as soon as we appended our signatures on that law. I ask again, what are private lawyers doing? Do they read the laws? But even if they don't know, as the officers of court, as people in dispensing justice, if it is a wrong within our house, it is very important that we point it out. And even before the other lawyers come to embarrass us in court, we have already known that this will not work. So sections like Section 129 of the Penal Code were also introduced in the law because the HIV Act failed to take off. When it failed to take off, they pulled one section, 129, and brought it in to add that a child below the age of adult, if defiled and the defiler is HIV positive, that defilement is aggravated and the punishment should be death. Now, you ask yourself, what are prosecutors looking for? What are judicial officers looking for? What are police officers looking for? Are we punishing defilement, or we have moved from the wrongdoing and we have focused so much on the disease? These things brought together speak to me that the law should have been amended very, very long ago, except that people do not know. Therefore, to me, it calls us as the implementers of criminal justice to open up, to open the spaces. Leave HIV to be a disease and not a crime. Leave TB to be a disease and not a crime. So that diseases are managed as diseases and people are given open space to speak about them. But if it were you go to police, you are HIV positive, and you have just had sexual intercourse with somebody who is saying, he forced me, even if it is an adult who has been raped. Can you disclose and say, Banang, I've left my medicine at home? Would you? Or even at testing, you would wish to bribe the doctor so that they say results are otherwise. And if that is done, it means we are hiding the disease, we are harboring it, it will soon burst back onto us. So we need spaces for disclosure and for taking ARVs for those who are on treatment. Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is while we are saying all these things, to calm the fears of the persons living with HIV, that something at least is now being done. For example, she asked, how do I whisper to a police officer that I'm HIV positive? What I've just posed as well. We now have the screening. You don't even have to whisper. Once you are in police custody, there will be somebody to take you aside to ask you, when did you last have sexual intercourse? When did you have any suspicion? Is any of your relations maybe sick? And when you answer these questions, they will inform the police officer who is handling you that you are a person maybe to be taken for testing. And when you need testing, if need for testing is observed, then they will give you to a counselor, which counselor will prepare you for testing. Should you accept to be tested, the Uganda Police Force now, in those 16 stations, they will test you and will begin you on treatment if you are found positive, whether of HIV, TB, or malaria, the 3 diseases. Now, they do that, they are empowered by a policy which was also made by this project. We have a policy at the Uganda Police Force to screen, but we have heard it is working only in the 16 stations. We are very hopeful that in the next cycle of the project, the donor may still be kind to us to extend to other stations. So your fears should be calmed down. Thank you, Madam Jacqueline.
Thank you very much, Ms. Proskovia. You can see how very passionate she is about this project, which is her baby. She has strongly castigated the law. Sincerely, she needs quick action, and we are about to tell us how long it's going to take for us to have the amendment. And she also says managed diseases as diseases and not as crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the presentation. We are moving straight into the plenary. I believe you have questions, you have comments coming from the presentations that we have had, but also take note of the introduction made by the project coordinator earlier on. She's right before us, so if you have any issues arising from that presentation and any comments, now is the time. Yes, please.
Madam Moderator, if you permit it, I'll go out and listen to that.
We have a microphone. Can we have someone please move the microphone? Sarah.
If staff are unhealthy, they can't manage inmates. So we also need to emphasize issue of
the staff. That's why every time we get these invitations, we select staff. These staff you see here, these are the ones who are managing these inmates. So from here, they go and transmit the same message to their followers, such that we make the staff healthy and they understand. Because we have very many staff, despite all these songs we have been singing for very many years, they still fear to approach our personnel, health personnel. They hide because of stigma. We have hospital in Mansion Bay, but some staff who are HIV positive, they don't go to those hospitals. They prefer private hospitals. So I think this project is very good, and your input, this one I've heard, they will go and transmit to the rest. I think that's why I'm really, really very happy. Staff needs to be emphasized because they are in the front line. First of all, they are the ones who receive these people from courts. So they really need to be emphasized. I'm very happy with that. Then I picked one point about public perception about we uniformed officers. We uniformed officers in this room, we should not blame the public for that poor perception about us. How can we reverse it? It is you to reverse it. How? By your contact. How do you conduct yourself out there in public? You're a police officer. How do you arrest people? You're a prison officer. How do you receive the inmates? How do you treat these inmates in the prisons? For example, when you're arresting somebody or you're talking to a prisoner, do you need to shout? Does shouting assert your powers? You don't need to shout on somebody, whether arresting or keeping. That one shows the type of person you are. If you can act professionally, all of us who are uniformed, even probably judiciary and TPP, if we can act professionally, the public will not fear us. I'm a human being like you. This uniform is just an artificial thing. If I remove this uniform and Proskovia removes hers, the difference will just be the objects which are there. But the color, the same, we shall be the same. I should be able to sit with an ordinary person there together at a table like this and talk as human beings. I'm Assistant Commissioner General, so what? This is something artificial, we're not born with it. So it is us, uniformed officers, please. It is us to change the narrative so that people have very clear perspective of us. Then on, I think, that one is, those are a few comments from Beatrice. Then on, I hope, Geraldine Akubu,
Yes.
Assistant Commissioner.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I've come at the right time. We have been having a serious challenge. We have been having this in Parliament. As you know, we are very, very congested. I have space for 20,000 prisoners maximum, but I have roughly 70,000 inmates. Comparative percent is around 360%. So, we have been saying, people we receive, because of this level of congestion, actually where a place for one prisoner is shared by almost 6 prisoners, okay? So when we receive inmates, on admission, we need to know this person's status. Especially TB, you know how dangerous it is. HIV and hepatitis B. And we are saying it is voluntary. But really TB, the doctors are here to correct me, we almost make it compulsory for TB because it's very, very dangerous. You take somebody who is, the TB is very active in a room which is supposed to be for 30 people, but is having 150 people, what do you expect? So that one is very strict. So when it comes to HIV, we gave a report. Parliamentarians were on our neck. Because when you listed people who should be mandatory tested, our inmates were not here. Probably you need to revisit this. We are doing it, first of all, we do it professionally. When we test, we have doctors, confidentiality is 100% assured. In parliament, even the parliamentarians were divided. Others were saying it's okay to protect the rest. Others were saying human rights. They brought the issue of human rights. So it became a serious issue. I really needed your comment on that. Should we compulsorily test inmates on admission to protect the rest or not? Or we emphasize the issue of human rights or confidentiality? Real, since the others also want to comment, let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Assistant Commissioner, Correctional Services, for those comments, concerns, and that guidance that you have given. Do we have any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Kajova Charles Chimuli. Thank you, the panelists, and the Office of the DPP for all this work, and the chairperson of NAFO. I think you took over from my teacher, Kentusi. Yes. Yeah, so I'm glad that the roles of the different institutions in the justice, law, and order sector were mentioned. Let me start with what my director talked about, HIV care and TB. With public health, we deal with mass health. When the other doctors are stranded, we are the people used to close you during lockdown. It wasn't the president. We would tell the president, close the country because of mass health. So TB affects many people. Just statistics that, and the cost, one TB patient to be treated and finish treatment, you need 2 million. Then there is another TB called multi-drug resistant TB. So that TB is treated for 8 months, sometimes 1 year. You need 14 million to manage one MDR TB case. 14 million. So a person with TB and becomes resistant, so you see the cost implication. And we have congestion challenges and all that. So one thing that maybe I missed out was the role of the judiciary in terms of supporting. There is police bond, there is court bond, there is bail and all that. And you have a challenge of, you get a prisoner and he's on a simple case, let me say, but then he has TB, and then he has that whatever TB. So currently we have about 10 patients with multi-drug resistant TB. So that is 140 million. And the government has to spend that money, and they do. So you can see the implication. So now you have this person coming into a prison, okay, is moving from court to the police cell, court to prison. So he's transmitting to all of you. The magistrates, the prosecutors, the police officers, even fail whatever in cells and everything. And you know how the court cells are, tiny rooms and all that. So we need to find a way of having some of these things prevented at that stage. And also at the police, we need to look at things like police bond, court bond, I think bail and all those things. Then thank you, the NGO coordinator for HIV, about this law. Really, it is very important that it is unfortunate that we still have some of these things in our laws. For example, the issue of, I'll give an example of rape plus HIV, that becomes aggravated rape. So we are trying to manage the disease with the crime, mixing the two. But HIV care begins with testing for you to know your status. So if you don't know your status, it means you'll be out there, not knowing who you are. So you'll keep on transmitting, and then the fight will be lost. So now, if you have criminalizing of the HIV person, it means people will stop testing. And that is the entry point into everything we are talking about. So the law definitely has to be whatever amended and then repealed and all that, because the whole fight is lost. It means people will keep away from knowing their HIV status. I mean, if I don't know my HIV status and I infect you, of course I'll prove in court that I don't know my HIV status by the time I was engaged in a relationship with you. So I'll go court-free. But then there is a bigger case that I ever talked about. I raped. So it means that if you take my HIV status to be above my case, it means you're losing the case and you're dealing with a disease, which is not the mandate of the court. The disease is the mandate of the doctors, the nurses, the Ministry of Health, and all that. So let the courts deal with their mandate and then leave the diseases to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, your neighbor.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm Norumba Liowere, a social worker in the Rehabilitation and Reintegration Department. As my boss has already said it, the director, our prisoners are doing well with HIV inside. But as social workers, we are resettling these people back into their communities. As we go in their communities to resettle them, at times we find it hard that some health centers, we don't get health centers there where they are going to resettle deep down in the villages. So it becomes hard. You have to look for the nearest health center, and which will take miles and miles away. So you'll find this person is not continuing. As the director has said, they are not doing well. So here I call in Ms. Beatrice to come in and see. You talked about the roles of each stakeholders, and you're saying the government stakeholders have the power. So our power goes up to when this person is released and is back into the community, and we are supervising it, say, for 2 years, but after 2 years, we are off. Then we call in the civil societies to come in and help and handle until this person continues, see how we can handle. Others, thank you very much. Yeah, those are me.
Thank you for raising that concern. Let's have the next two, and then we shall give them an opportunity to respond.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Our facilitators, once again, I'm Detective Assistant Inspector of Police attached to Chira Road Police Station. At Chira Road, I'm like a conduit between the health facility and the police cells. Mine is like a challenge. We have got suspects who are HIV victims. And normally, the system of arresting these suspects, always they are not ready to be arrested. And you find that when they are brought to cells or to police stations, they don't have their drugs. And you find that the treatment is discontinued. And you have no way. At times you find that, I'm told there are stages whereby you find someone is on a certain stage. And our facility does not fit there to give treatment of that victim. And we find that those suspects are always in that danger of not continuing with the treatment. How best are we going to be assisting those suspects in our custody? We cannot beat the 48 hours, our rule, as is expected. So you find that a suspect can stay more than 2 or 3 days without that treatment. So we needed a way of at least assisting those victims in our custody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for raising that. I was actually going to say does the Uganda Police Force and the Uganda Prison Service have these drugs that are needed by these suspects being supplied regularly to ensure that the treatment is continuous? I think we will hear from the Assistant Commissioner, Correctional Services about that, because then we would have to ensure that we have some constant supply. Maybe some organizations or institutions ensuring that we have constant supply in those institutions. Let's have the last one before they respond, and then we'll have another round.
Thank you very much. I request to talk while standing, because I always get courage to express my views while standing. I know I'm Siddiq Ziad, working with the Uganda Police Force. You see, Mr. President has always been complaining about human rights in some cases. Really, some human rights are good. Actually, human rights are good, but some, at times, they tend to compromise some other people's human rights. I just, when I was seated here listening to Madame Brescovia, I remembered when I was doing my research, I was being supervised by one lady called Dr. Jane Frank. But after a while, I went to the academic registrar, that's Maldumei, asked him to give me another supervisor. Then he asked me why. I said, this one is more educated. This is a person with a PhD. I'm doing a diploma. I think reasoning is not, rhyming. So it was a long story, but consequently I got what I wanted after raising that. What am I trying to say? That somehow, somewhere, I'm not understanding well. Probably, maybe well, because I have little knowledge or what. But I need to understand this. Another case scenario I would also refer to before I bring out my concern. I was watching a documentary on Al Jazeera one time. Then one Muzungu said that we sent some people to destabilize that region. Then we came in to offer security, but with an intention of stealing their fuel. So they are the ones who sent people to destabilize the area. Then they came in to give security, to show their relevance, and with an aim of stealing their oil. I'm really relating these two scenarios to what we are talking about as human rights. For example, maybe some people have intentions of letting the situation go beyond control. Then they come in to say, we are helping you. How can you say that if you infect someone with HIV, that we all know that is taking government's money, very much money, as one of you said that almost 90% of the fund we get goes into HIV. Then you say, if someone infects me, I don't need to talk about it, we should talk about other things. Like, just talk about defilement. But defiling a child plus infecting the child, you should not talk about that HIV status. Does it come? So you are saying that more people should be infected so that we treat them, we become relevant in the community, showing that we are helping. Because really, if you are preventing, how can you say that, when I'm starting love with someone and I infect that person, there is no case to answer. Because now, it's my right to have sex with you, even if I'm infecting you. Giving a burden to the government to buy drugs, and also giving a burden of this person to take those drugs. Come on, I think we better have the sense of Africanism, and we think about our values. I'm not understanding well. I think, to understand well.
Why do we give PEP? To prevent someone from getting infected. Then we say, better take PEP, but don't accuse the person who let me get to take PEP. That is human right. That if someone, how can we assess the intention, whether it was intentional or not? I think that's enough to prove that this person has intention to infect me. Even if science has proved that maybe after a certain period of time you will not infect, but how can we prove that? The fact is you have HIV, you have that is intentional. Because if you don't intend to do so, and you know you are positive, why don't you encourage us to use condom? Then you say we just go live, because now we have taken for a long time, which chance is there that will prove that really? Then why do we take PEP? I think we should stop PEP because we know there is no problem, it is no more, it is, how the person has a right. Thank you very much. We shall add more.
Thank you very much for raising those honest concerns, and he's highlighting the rights of the victim. So we need our presenters to address this issue. We have victims that also have rights. What are the rights of the victim vis-a-vis the rights of these people that you're saying HIV positive, have AIDS? How about the victim in this scenario? And also, maybe we can have the presenters guide us on, aren't there cases where there can be evidence that someone knew that he had AIDS or was HIV positive and deliberately had sex with a victim? I think that is what he's trying to bring out. Should those ones be treated like those ones who didn't know? Let's give the presenters an opportunity to respond to the questions that have been raised. We can start with Miss Geraldine.
Thank you. I appreciate the questions and comments that have come from the audience. I would say many of them, at least as far as my presentation goes, were really things for me to note.
Yes.
For purposes of review of the law. I need to find out how, because for purposes of testing prisoners for TB, it's a public health measure, and it could not possibly have been captured within the law on HIV, and I need to look at other laws and see where prisons and prisons authorities could get protection or cover. I'm sure it is there in the public health, in one of the public health, either the Public Health Act, or I'm almost certain it's in there in the Public Health Act, because I remember when Parliament was reviewing the Public Health Act, the Commission was asked for its opinion, because there was a provision on compulsory testing for certain communicable diseases, and we made a presentation on it. I can look at it, and get back to you on that, so that you know where you can be protected, because that is just a public health measure that is in place. One of us asked about the role of the judiciary in reducing congestion. I will confer with the law and get back to you on that. Okay. And then there was a question about the role of the judiciary in reducing congestion, and if we can use available mechanisms like bail, police bond. This wasn't mentioned, but hearing in camera, virtual hearings, because we know that these days we even have some hearings that are done virtually. It is definitely something that would be positive for the judiciary, and positive also for inmates who are in custody, and it's something that the judiciary is already exploring different mechanisms to try to reduce congestion within our holding facilities, within the police, within the prisons. But it is something that there's nothing that stops us to continue from promoting these mechanisms, from promoting use of these mechanisms that are already in place, and also exploring other mechanisms. So that I will take I will not take it as a question. I've taken it as a proposal for us to try to use available mechanisms to try to promote reduction of congestion in our holding facilities. The last question, I'm not certain if I got the last comment, if it was a question or if they were just proposals that were being made. I don't know if there are any issues that were directed to me that I may not have picked up.
I would like to imagine that the last one was a concern on the part of the victims, and I think that it's something that you need to take into consideration during your discussion, during the dialogue towards the amendment of the
Maybe
act.
I could just say that even to get the act passed in the state that it was passed with the provisions that it has, Beatrice and I are not meeting for the first time to discuss this bill. It was a huge, there were very big concessions that were made. And the rights of victims were taken into consideration, the rights of persons infected with HIV, infected and affected, infected with and affected by HIV were taken into considerations. So it took us a long time to get to the position that we got to, or the position where that bill was enacted into legislation. And the only thing I could say to allay the fears of the participant is that before any legislative proposals are enacted, adequate consultations are done. And we try as much as possible to reach a level of consensus that works for all of society and not just for individuals. So the rights of the parties on both sides are taken into consideration, not just the rights of one side of the equation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Geraldine, for that. Can we hear from Ms. Proskovia?
Thank you.
Oh, okay, no worries. We can have Ms. Beatrice.
To raise actually go to her.
Okay.
Yes, so what I pick from what's coming is that one, stigma is a major issue. Stigma is such a burden. We have had this as a burden for the 40 years of this epidemic, and we are seeing a new wave of stigma. If some of you saw about 2-3 weeks ago, in I think one of the big newspapers, it could have been the Monitor, where the headline, I think it was even the first, page one, where the big news happens, the first page, where they were saying that people are contracting HIV out of fun? Something like HIV is being contracted out of fun. That wasn't amusing to come from a paper like the Monitor, really. That shows you how much in this country we are not taking this issue seriously. Nobody can contract HIV out of fun. There are factors which have been scientifically proven to expose people to HIV, and fun is not one of them. So you're not going to tell me that I will not have fun because I'm going to catch HIV if I go out to watch a movie. But those factors that predispose people to HIV is what we should be concerned about. And one of them is stigma. that kind of reporting by the media raises stigma. There was also something about, did you see in that story that Mbarara now has the highest infection rates? My daughter, I think some guy from Mbarara was vibing her. You know, you hear them when they are talking. You know, he was vibing me and things like that. So I was listening to her talking. Then she said, and you know, Mbarara is where there is HIV, and he works with Mbarara University. Can you imagine the way it impacted on the girl? Now, her assumption that everybody from Mbarara has it is very, very important the way we communicate and the way we portray things. It has taken us back 40 years ago when people used to fear ladies from Masaka. I remember in the early days of HIV, once a man would hear this woman is from Masaka, they would run. And what women would say, a woman from Masaka in Kampala, I remember in as early as, because I was diagnosed in 1991. So I've lived a long time seeing how things, the perceptions, how they have changed, and how people respond, how people act. I remember many women from Masaka, when a man would be getting into courtship with us, she would say, I'm from Bweyogerere. They would not say they are from Masaka. I'm from Mukono. So stigma, the new wave of stigma that we are seeing as a country is a concern. How we communicate things as media, how we do things as the criminal justice system, we should be concerned about stigma. And I'm glad, Assistant Commissioner, that you're raising that. That's a big challenge. You will find somebody, I remember in the early days when I was working as a social worker in Zambia, the people around in Zambia home care would not come for our services. Somebody would move from Zambia and come to Kamocha. Somebody would move from Zambia and go to Mengo. And it was because of stigma. And it is one of the issues. By the time you see your staff choosing to go into private health care than Maction Bay, it sends a question. It means there's a lot that has to be done to address stigma in prison. What is it that is not being done? But today I want to give you the good news. The good news today that we have, there's what they call differential service delivery, DSD. You can even get your medication at a pharmacy. You can choose what you're comfortable with. If it's a pharmacy, you tell your doctor, I want to go and get it over the counter at a pharmacy, and it will still be free as you would get it at JCRC. But what is important, you get the medicine, you take it, you stick on it. No matter where you get it from, create the environment that enables people to go on treatment. The other issue that came up was the issue of congestion, and I know you have spoken to it from the side of the Law Reform Commission and the engagement that you promised. But I just want to say, if there is any opportunity, proceed to, when you're dealing with the judicial officers, when you're dealing with the judiciary, please let them expedite processes of getting people to go through the process of justice, keeping people in the system. And I'll tell you one experience. I have a personal one. I am going through my divorce. One of the challenges I've had is that I have been in court since 2005, just waiting for execution. 2005. I started when my baby was 5 months. Today, she's 20. Can you imagine being in there and all that is required? The judge is not there. We are waiting for her ruling. We are waiting for this. Things that you really they don't make sense to me. And just because we have to wait, you just have to wait for justice. But in the context of HIV, you cannot run business as usual. Can you imagine if I had died before? Because that trauma and all that stress could have killed me. In line with the same thing, when I decided to choose divorce, I was assaulted by my husband. He beat me up, and I had just had a baby after 2 months by C-section. And when I went, and this is Ginger Road Police Station, and sometimes I get tempted even to mention the names, but I will not mention the officer. But I just want to say it was Ginger Road. And these were two ladies. So when I take the case to them, this man is holding up my baby. This is a baby I delivered on PMT City. She needs to be fed in a certain way and to be cautious about how we take care of her. And I'm at that vulnerable stage. And this man holds my baby, says, you go, you will not take the baby. The baby is with my mother-in-law who says, we are keeping our blood. My husband has not disclosed to his mother. She doesn't know I am not breastfeeding. She starts saying the woman wants to kill our child. Why is she not breastfeeding the child? And I'm in that mix. So I went with my lawyer to Ginger Road to get the officers at Family Protection Unit to escort me to get my baby. And what do? They actually go on the side of the man because he gave them money. And I need to save my baby. So that I saved her when she was in my belly. I don't want her to get any other problem. So when we get there, they turn against me. I could not believe. One of them has since passed on. May she rest in peace, and I mean it in good faith. But I wish I could tell her those things now. And she asked me, you are leaving the man just because he slapped you? Then she started showing me. You see this scar here? I was cut by my husband. You see here? I'm like, hey. So I'm supposed to wait to reach the level of him cutting me. And then the next thing you hear, they are on his side. They even helped him to hide. And I'm fighting for my child. I'm trying to save my baby's life. So we really need to be sensitive about situations. Some of these delays, some of the congestion is caused by the way we do things in the criminal justice system. I wanted to talk about the issue of supporting inmates. You raised that, and I really appreciate it. The fact that when inmates are with you, they are adhering well. They are happy. Very interesting. When they come out, we would expect them to be happy to come home. But what do we think could be the problem? I would imagine, if I'm empathizing, if I were that inmate, one, when I'm in prison, I'm not suffering with other bills. I'm only dealing with serving my sentence. My medicine is there, food is there. But when they come out, they have to deal with the issues of transitioning, adjusting to the new environment, but perhaps also disclosing to his wife that, you know what, I was tested when I was in prison, and I am on treatment. They've got to deal with the issue of disclosure to their families, that kind of support. Without really dwelling too much into it, I would like to make this offer, that this could be a beginning of partnering with us as people living with HIV, as NAFOPANU, so that when you are releasing such an inmate, you can actually contact us, so that they know when they are in there, you tell them that as you are going out, there is a community of people who are like you, who are taking medication, who are coping, and that could be your source of support. And we are ready to receive them from this end and support them to adhere to treatment. I would like to say that, and I also didn't quite understand the last person, but I understood that he was trying to challenge, things look like we are being favored as those of us who are positive, like we are being made to, we are proud about it, which is not true. But the thing is, to understand the direction where the world is going. Last week, there was a big conference on AIDS and STDs in Africa, in Harare, in Zimbabwe. And what came out in that conference was that all countries that are high burdened with HIV should work hard to see that they repeal laws that stand in the way of attaining the goals of treatment and prevention of the 3 diseases. And Uganda is one of those countries. That countries like Botswana and other countries, imagine Swaziland, I forget the name that is called these days, that country, that small country, which, Swati, right? Swatini. They had the highest burden of HIV. Southern Africa had a very high burden because of stigma and denial and fear. Uganda, we used to have we were the world's eye. We got so much attention because we did so well as a model country. Can you imagine Eswatini now being ahead of the game than us. Botswana is now ahead of us. And why? Because of the laws that stand in the way of, we are enacting laws that stand in the way of attaining the results we want. We are bringing back stigma. We are rolling back. We have invested so much in this response as a country, so much as Uganda, and we cannot afford the investment of 40 years to go to waste because we are now determined to stigmatize, determined to judge. But what I want to say, before Prosi, maybe you understood him, what I want to say to our colleague is that when we are addressing HIV, we follow science, public health particularly, and he's here to guide us, and human rights. We don't follow emotions, we don't follow morals, we follow science. And that is the standard globally that we follow. I'd like to finish by asking, by correcting. I am not the ED of Nakopano. Still, I came to see still the ED as your teacher. I am the chairperson. So I am the boss of your teacher. I want to thank you so much. Prosi, please, you address his issues.
Thank you so much, Ms. Beatrice. Ms. Proskovia.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's a lot. But we will start with a gentleman from Uganda Police Force. I do appreciate your concerns. I was worse than you. I am not only a lawyer, I am also an international relations person. And when you study international relations and you study the colonial mind vis-a-vis the African mind, then someone would want to think like you. They are coming here now to do this, so they will come back to look like God the Father. I was even worse than you in looking at HIV and the law. And I was one of those people who you would not even, I would not even attend a workshop like this. I say now, colonialism is coming with a white collar. I will not attend. I will refuse outrightly. But by God's grace, I am here. And I understand using a new perspective. You have said human rights are bad. That was your statement. And I have said, yes, I wrote it down. And I said, human rights are good. It is the implementers that are bad. Just like Christianity is good. But some people hide under it to do wrong. So it is important that in implementation of human rights, the nationals take the lead. When you use human rights to implement development, and that's what it should be. We are using human rights, for example, and sticking to a right to health. And we are saying, if we avail health services within the criminal justice system, we cannot go everywhere because we are not now the Ministry of Health, but we understand our own situations better than a doctor from the Ministry of Health. So we tell Ministry of Health that this is how we would like to approach it. Give it a human face. You heard the commissioner telling us that they are tough in their uniforms. We are tough in our attire, legal attire, professional attire. And that's why people fear us. And when people fear us, we are not relating. If you went to a place, even as you came here, if there was no announcement, people take breakfast, the soft one has come, would you have risen up by yourself to go and take breakfast? You wouldn't. It would still be behind there. The best you can do is to grumble amongst yourselves. But you cannot rise by yourself when you just in this new place and you go and receive. So it is our African way of doing things. We are a communal community as Africans. And in Uganda, that is the spirit of saying, if a neighbor has a problem, you perceive it as your own neighbor. It is the spirit of Africa, the Ubuntu. It is us that have that seed compared to the rest of the world. So we must learn to use our own systems that sustained our grandparents to have better communities. In fact, if you want to be individualistic and punish a neighbor who is suffering for what they have not got, I'm now not speaking legal but social, because it is the social constructions that inform the legality of every nation. Now, our way is helping a neighbor get out of the problem. Our way is not punishing the neighbor. We are not individualistic like the Westerners. We are not Europe. They are individualistic. In Europe, a mother has nothing to do with you as long as she's not supporting what you are following. And in fact, as soon as you finish college, you can run away from home. But for us here, if you don't go back to the village, in my language, Oryecherare, you are a shame to your parents. You are a shame to the community that raised you. So we are drawing this management of HIV from our own social constructs. Do not be deceived that any white man or woman has come here to tell us that now open space. No. We know that if I educate my mother in the village, you educate yours, that HIV is transmittable through sexual intercourse or by your blood, maybe by accident, meeting the blood of a person who is infected. So these other things of eating with them, talking with them should be good. And you know, mama or grandma, if you treat a person with HIV that way, they are going to open up, take their medicine in an allowed manner, so that even if they went out there, going back to what I told you, being HIV positive does not take away the sexual feelings. Now, we come from that, especially you as a man. I have been told that many in Africa, the biggest punishment they can suffer is denial of sexual intercourse. Now, if we know that as Africans we are as potent as that, then why wouldn't we address the issues from our own perspective? I am not going to stop this man from having sexual intercourse. What do I do that he does not transmit to those that he will meet? Let me open space, he talks about it. So that even people, because now if you come to Madame Beatrice and ask for love, you will have loved her just as she is. But you imagine her quiet. Can you even suspect her? Can you? You can't. You can't even suspect her. She can type her mini and she will walk in her heels and you will say, oh my God. But when space is opened and HIV becomes like a cough that I have today, HIV becomes like another disease which you're not ashamed of to say, I have malaria, I am suffering from diabetes, I have high blood pressure, I'm not eating that food. Allow the HIV positives to be as free as that, so that we know them. A stone which is visible can hardly hurt a hoe. In my language, we must allow them to speak. If we allow them to speak, we will be free also to go and test. We will know space is opened. And for me, if I reasoned with you, HIV compared to diabetes, I would rather have HIV. A diabetic person can suffer. A high blood pressure person can suffer. A person with hepatitis B. These diseases that you have no hope of living positively. If you have hepatitis B, it's almost like a ticket to death, depending on the level when it is discovered. If you have diabetes, you are a very sick person. In fact, add the word very, very sick person. But an HIV person living positively, taking medicine properly, and eating their food properly, that person is as normal as you. They drink alcohol, they have sex as much as they want, they can even participate in games, they produce if they are women. But if you're diabetic or high blood pressure, you go and chimberembere, you conceive. Most of them die. If they don't die, they lose the babies. But HIV persons are living and producing, contributing to the economy. You have seen her. She's a whole chairperson, national chairperson. She has traveled, she has not told you, very many countries, contributing to change of policy in other countries. But she has lived with HIV for 30 years. 31 years. Don't we need more like her? Wouldn't you be in a better world where people say, you say, please, I have liked you. I said, but I am HIV positive. Do you mind? You know, we want it to be as quick and as easy for society to speak about, just like that. The way you say, I'm diabetic. No, why aren't you eating this? No, I'm diabetic. You know, I take it slowly. The doctor stopped me this and this. Let the HIV positive persons be able to speak about it. And if it is the law denying them the opportunity to speak, scrap it, my brother. Let's scrap it. You support me. And if it is the stigma, deal with it, the way they have said. If it is congestion, deal with congestion. And let us have a stigma-free and open society where HIV positives are able to speak. Whether you're doing health, whether you're doing criminal justice and prosecuting, we are all the same at the end of the day. A child produced by a positive mother can tomorrow be a wife to your negative son. And she's also negative. But lo and behold, she's the mother-in-law who you met at Ginger Road Police Station and you mistreated some time back just for being positive. Okay, that was a social sharing that I can bring you closer to my mind. And if I can have your number, we will work together. It is good to challenge, also to question things, because if we don't question, sometimes we can fall in danger. So no hard hearts. I am not hurt. I'm very happy that you can question, that you are a nationalistic at heart. You're thinking, is this Muzungu coming to open up so that people suffer? Well, I will not go back to the discussion of inability to prove that somebody intended to infect you. Because now science challenges us. And as the lawyers or as police officers, science takes precedence over the law. Science informs the law. And if a law has been overtaken by science, that law cannot stand. It will very soon, as private law, maybe we should have begun with the Uganda Law Society. We give them this information so that the lawyers from private practice will attack lawyers, us from government, from this perspective that I'm talking. Then we see how judges are going to decide those cases. I think we can have, you have redirected my mind. They need to be brought on board. So that, because if they do not challenge us in court, we are going to be here between ourselves, dilly-dallying, until they defile. What are we looking for as prosecutors? For me, it is the fact that you are an adult man and you went for a child. The Baganda say, you took her where she shouldn't have been and in a wrong way. And I want to punish you for that. Whether you are short or tall or lame or HIV positive, or I don't care. What I care is that you did it and you are an adult and this was a child you should have been taken care of. That suffices. And let me surprise you. There was a gender-based court circuit at Naweru where they handled all cases relating to gender. Usually they are sexual offenses and violence against the men or women. Some women also beat men. Now, during that session, the highest punishment attained, even for those who are HIV positive, was only 5 years. 5 years was the highest punishment attained. That shows you that even if we sit here and discuss, humanity is humanity. Like what I've told you, it is our way as Africans to feel for the weak, to feel for those who are sick. So even when it is in court, the judge remains a human. When a man comes from Ruzira or wherever, when people have been in prison, they really look so sad. You don't want to see that sight, especially if they have been sick. And so when a judge looks at this person, it doesn't matter how much you plead as a prosecutor, you can jump, state machinery, make all submissions, but the judge will, the eyes will be on this person. Tafireyo, if I give him what, tafireyo, or do you have, they begin to ask, do you have children? So you can tell that the judge is already feeling that this man needs to be handled otherwise. And so we cannot earn at your end. Disease is to sympathy. But defilement will keep the man in prison. But the judge is sympathizing because of the disease. So we better leave the disease and punish the intent, which is defilement or rape or otherwise. And you wanted to know, what about the victims? I spoke about the question of victims. The victims should be cared for in as far as we should not go publishing them, that the person who has defiled them, the person who has raped them is HIV positive. Because we are in essence telling others on their behalf that you see this one is now HIV positive. Isn't it what we are communicating? So if you love the victim so much, be silent about the health position of this man or woman who has transmitted. Not because you want them to increase, but there are many other ways of handling. Now in prison, there is peer management. They are going to counsel them when you have a disease. You have gotten that book, my brother. Read it. See how nutritious it is. For management of a prisoner, mind change. If the rape was because or defilement was because they cannot approach an adult woman, now Uganda prisons will be reforming men, showing them how to relate, teaching them. It's going to be real school for change using that manual. And it should cater for the victims, both current and would-be victims. We will not in a near future expect a man who has come from a prison to come and misbehave in society. There's going to be a lot of reform, and since the gentleman in charge of correctional services is here, we don't have to fear. I have found him a man with fire, and I'm sure that the program will catch fire, the program will be implemented in Uganda prisons, and that we shall have reformed men and women coming from prison to develop, to contribute to the development of the country. Some facilities are below, somebody raised an issue that some facilities are below a certain level of receiving certain medication. We talked about it. I think I've been working with Mr. Kamugisha and Dr. Mwezi. We talked about it, and we are trying to see if the donor gives us money in the next cycle, our advocacy would be to Ministry of Health that they improve on the status of the clinics at Uganda Police Force and also in Uganda prisons, so that these be treated as special institutions to receive all drugs of all regiments. We shouldn't forget that. Are the drugs constantly supplied? Mr. Kamugisha is nodding in affirmative. Yes, They are supplied, and they are supplied by the National Drug Authority to the different institutions.
Medical stores.
National medical stores, I beg your pardon.
Maybe
The time
maybe you'd like
lines
to
may
talk
be for
about the
Jeremy.
bail and bond.
Maybe I wanted to speak about expediting
Yes.
of hearing cases of infected and affected persons. Yes, Beatrice, we took it up. We have another program. We call it Plea Bargain for those burdened with diseases. However, as it is usually the question of funding. So we've had very little funding. In this cycle, we have done 4 plea bargain sessions for those who are sick. Quickly, this is how it is done. We go to prison, we visit the Uganda prisons, they identify for us persons who should enjoy that service. Then we will follow that identification with a general sensitization. All of them come out of prison, sit in tents, and we speak to them about the services that we are bringing. But for reasons of stigma, we don't say we are bringing out only those who are sick. But we emphasize that if you're sick, you have any ailment, we don't even mention HIV, you are the right candidate for this program. And when it is done, we also consider that those who plead that I'm HIV positive, we give them light sentences, usually community service, if it is offenders who are not of capital nature. So we are hoping that the program will be given much more money. You will recall that during the writing, some sections of the communities or NGOs were arguing with me that we are going to use this activity to harass the homosexuals. But you know that it's a well-intended program, and even when it came on board, we had not yet had the Anti-Homosexuality Act, and therefore it couldn't have been done to target them. Releasing persons with HIV on bail, yes. The Chief Justice released a notice for considerations for bail, and one of them is having grave illness, which HIV is one of them. Stigma is a high burden, especially in Uganda prisons. Yes, it is, and it's true that some inmates do not take medication. They take it, after you have given them, they put it in their sleeping places. So when sometimes they go to clean, you'll ask Dr. Kisambu, they can find a packet like this. And then you say, who was supposed to take this medication? Some of them fear for reasons of nutrition. Others fear because they have just known that they are HIV positive from Uganda prisons. And others fear because of, the peer pressure. That is why the peer program in Uganda prisons should come to your rescue. Be sure that you every time you have somebody, a peer, an insider on HIV, TB, and malaria, so that you can be able to handle that. I don't know if I have answered every question. Madam Moderator, am I there?
Yes, you have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think, Prosi, what is important that I want us to go away with is that even for us who are infected and we know, we need to enjoy our rights with responsibility.
Yeah.
I committed myself to keeping just the amount of virus that I have in my body from the time I knew I was infected. And I became serious, and I live with that on a daily basis. On a daily. If we could all commit ourselves to being cautious, that as we are enjoying our rights, the government has enabled us to access treatment, the environment there is there, and we are advocating that we shouldn't be stigmatized. We should also vow to ensure that we do not infect others, even the babies we carry, even the persons that we are going to have sex with, that we should be responsible, so that I think that's where the gentleman is coming from, because we seem to be advocating on the side of our rights, our rights. I think what I commit again as the chair of NAFOPANU is that we are going to balance that with the language of also advocating to say we would like to enjoy our rights, but we would also like to be responsible to ensure that no other person is infected, that we do not infect any other person, that we take our medicine properly and we are undetectable and we are not able to transmit, that we don't transmit to the babies we carry and to the sex partners that we have. I think that's an important message. Otherwise, people will think, oh, Prosi is now saying these people should be protected, and then we are left at risk.
Maybe I should put a disclaimer that while I'm saying these things, I have first told you the law is not yet amended. So me, when you find me in my shoes of a prosecutor, I prosecute you. But also, there are instances when we can prove that your transmission was intentional. For example, if you draw blood and inject in another. For example, if you are a woman who is infected with HIV, but you go and invite the little boys to come and sleep with you, we can say there is some intention, circumstantially. But it's not easy to prove intention where the two are adults.
Okay. Thank you very much, our presenters. I was just thinking, Prosi, that maybe you could also consider for the Global Fund project the ordinary sessions, because you've been considering plea bargain sessions, but I think it's also important to consider the ordinary sessions for this category of persons, of suspects. Because of time, I will now ask each of the presenters to give us a punchline, your concluding remark, and we bring this session to a close. It can be a sentence. What is it that you want them to carry home?
Okay,
in just one sentence or two, yeah.
For if you take nothing from here, from the discussion, one thing that I would like us to take home, or one sentence that would enable us have what to take home, would be drawn from my first submission, that prevention of HIV is incumbent on all of us, irrespective of where we are. However, in the criminal justice system, when we speak about the law and how it is affecting ending HIV by 2030, let us think in terms of the standard of proof vis-a-vis available science. Let us think in form of the victim. What happens to the child who you have told the whole world that now she has HIV? Let us think in terms of what about our membership with the East African community and how they have told us that our law does not match up to what they have, and the economic question. What effect does it have if we do not prevent stigma and therefore prevent further infections or higher infections who take higher regimens and we have to spend so much on them? What impact does it have on the general development of the country? And what services do we miss? And then ask yourself, do we therefore amend the law to remove stigma, or do we still have the law to show that actually we know that those who have HIV have a problem? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Prosi. Ms. Geraldine.
I'd like to thank you all very much. There was a question that was asked about the timeline for coming up with the recommendations. It's our proposal, and it's our hope that it will be that reform of this law will be catered under the Global Fund program. So it's something that we're working on. And if it comes to pass that the Global Fund program will take it under consideration, we will look forward to further consultations with all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Ms. Geraldine. So in other words, it's being fast-tracked. Yes, Ms. Beatrice.
You must have noticed I'm a very talkative person.
Yes, you are.
This has been since I was a kid. So I'm not going to say anything else because I've talked a lot, but I'll ask you to allow me those 2 minutes for my girls to say something.
Okay.
Daphne, you want to say something? I saw your hand. You want to say something? Oh, Ben, I'm giving the time to you. So people know that we have mentored some young people. Please say something.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Thank you, Beatrice, for the opportunity. First, I had a question for Geraldine. I don't know if she'll be able to answer it. And it goes like this. When you amending those laws and maybe creating those bills, are there health workers on board or scientists on board? Because Rosemel has made it clear that science is at the forefront. We understand you want to protect the community, but there is the other community that at some times is also being affected. And then in the law reforms, when you're trying to come back and consider these other people, how do we make up for the people who have already been affected by the law? And then I know most of what I wanted to talk about, Proscovia has talked about it. Sorry, Rosemel. It was about the plans and programs that are in place to address the psychosocial aspects of people living with HIV in prisons, especially in terms of safe spaces. Do they know the people to go to? Secondly, the intervention for ex-convicts, because they face HIV in prisons, because we may only look at condom use, but we also have new technologies in place. Are these prisoners able to access PrEP and PrEP whenever they need it? Then I also wanted to echo on the issue of proper assessment and follow-up on prisoners, especially those who have been on treatment, because we normally get so many, I can call them client prostitutes, but I don't mean prostitutes in terms of sleeping with each other. What I mean is people come from different parts of the country, they transition, but they don't sometimes disclose. And it's the same applies to prisoners. When they are arrested, when they reach prison, and if there is no proper assessment and follow-up, if they have ever been tested before or been on treatment, it's a bit hard to bring them back on board. And sometimes this is where it brings issues of drug resistance, because they have left all their documents at home, they don't know the treatment they are taking, and you as a health worker, you'll ask them and they'll be like, I'm taking some white pill in a blue container, but you need to know the actual regimen. And then sometimes they will not tell you the truth that I've been on treatment, and then you end up starting them on a new regimen of treatment. And you might find this person maybe was on the first regimen or second regimen of treatment, and then now you have to again start them on the first regimen, which brings about drug resistance. I submit.
All right, thank you very much for your submission. I will only ask Ms. Geraldine to answer the bit of, what did she say? Whether the health workers will be involved in that process of the amendment.
The short answer is yes. For every law that is reviewed by the Commission, we get stakeholders, key experts and people who are involved in implementation of that particular law that is under review. So we bring them on board as a technical working group to guide the review process.
All right, thank you, Ms. Geraldine. Back to you, Ms. Beatrice.
Thank you, Bena. I think most of the issues that Bena raised have been addressed in some way. My aim was just to show you that we have young people who are born with HIV, who have grown with HIV, and when we are making these laws and being harsh, some of the people we are judging did not acquire HIV intentionally. Ben and Daphne, sorry that I have not sought your consent, but those are our two young people, those represent a big population of young people who are born with HIV, who have now grown into adulthood. But at the beginning, we thought they would only live to their second birthday. So when we are talking about HIV and stigmatizing, we need to be mindful that we have young people who are struggling, first of all, to know the parents maybe didn't tell them, but also to cope with the fact that they were born with HIV and they do not have, they question a lot of things that they are not getting answers for. And I'm proud to be a mentor of girls like Daphne and Bena, who I'm supporting to cope with that reality.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beatrice, and thank you so much for the efforts that you're putting in to help others. At this point, I request that we would appreciate.
Moderator,
yes.
There's Bena raised an issue of prisoners able to access PrEP and PEP services and other prevention services. Maybe because she's an advocate, we equip her with the information that when they are out there, she can speak to the other teams. Bena, yeah, you are a medical person. In Uganda, when you are arrested, it means some of your rights are taken away, like a right to free movement, a right to sexual intercourse. Those rights are taken away from you when you are in Uganda prison. And now, because those rights are taken away, we can't say there is no sexual intercourse in Uganda prisons, and then at the same time, we are providing services for sexual intercourse in the same prisons. No one is going to give us those services. So that's what it is.
Okay, let's appreciate the presenters for their presentations and the plenary session. Thank you very much. You may now take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I would like to apologize on behalf of the Office of the DPP. The Deputy DPP, who was supposed to open this meeting, was unable to make it due to unavoidable circumstances. But we are privileged and honored to have with us the Assistant Commissioner, Correctional Services. We are happy to have you here with us for this meeting. Yes. Please permit me now to invite the Assistant Commissioner, Correctional Services, Uganda Prison Service, to make his remarks, which will conclude this meeting.
Yeah, it's already good afternoon. Really, a lot has been said. I don't know how I can summarize, but I'll try my level best to summarize and to give what I can. First of all, I'm happy to be here to close this meeting. And Proskovia, you were out. I told the audience that I was going to miss this function because initially, you remember I was not there. You told me to send my staff. I sent them, and that was all. I didn't have an idea that I was coming to benefit. Yeah, to set the record very clear, for a reason, I'm called Milton Tio. I'm Assistant Commissioner General of Prisons in charge of correctional services. Under the directorate, I have 3 departments, that of rehabilitation and reintegration, where we have social workers or rehabilitation or reintegration officers. We have custodial services, which deals with the courts, management of prisoners. I have correctional, I have community corrections, then I have Department of Education, Formal Education, and Vocational Skills Training. I'm emphasizing this because 2 days ago, we were in Sheraton on issues to do with human rights. Actually, we were celebrating commemoration of 75 years of UDHL. After that, I think it was Opera News. I'm addressing myself to the First Estate. After the function, they attributed my comments to Deputy Commissioner General of Prisons, Samuel Akena. What I said, they attributed to him. Even they put his photo. You can see how dangerous it is. In case I messed up in my remarks, then the Deputy Commissioner General was going to be now on my neck. I would have lost my job. So Fourth Estate, this time I pray you don't make any mistakes. If you make mistakes, I will feed you this evening. Anyway, this is just on a light note. As I said earlier, for us with as Uganda Prison Service, we have what is called open door policy. Open door policy means that inmates, the people we are keeping, are for you. They are for the world. It's not for Uganda Prison Service. Alone, we can't manage it. How did it start? In the 1980s, 1990s, running prisons was a very difficult problem because the doors were closed. It was all the prisons that deals with prisoners. But our late Commissioner General, Joseph Etima, there were conferences, I can't go into the details. That's when they published the issue of open door policy. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that our doors to prisons are open, no. What it means is, if you have good intentions for the inmates, for the people we are keeping, you are welcome. Whether it is faith-based organization, whether it is CSO, whether it is an NGO, whether it is an individual, whether it is community-based organization, you are welcome. So long as we sit down, we see the intentions, we discuss, we allow you to do whatever activities you want. So long as you don't cause any security problem for us, our doors are open. But it doesn't mean that our prison doors are really open. So that is what we mean by open door policy. That's why in fighting HIV/AIDS in prisons, it is not only UPS. We have very many church-based, faith-based organizations that help us. We have very many NGOs. We have CBOs. We have CSOs. We have individuals that help us in fighting this scourge. Otherwise, if it was only to us, there's no way we are going to manage. On top of that, there was a question asked about availability of drugs. Dr. Kajoba is there and others are there. All these years, these organizations have been helping us, including CDC, when it comes to testing and many others. So that's why we are really there. And that's why I said, for us, we are very convinced we are really managing people living with HIV/AIDS in Uganda Prison Service. Before I forget, the young girl there who raised the issue of giving PEP for inmates and all that things about sex. Ours is very clear. On admission, we want to test you. We want to know whether you are positive or not. If you are positive, we put you on treatment. The doctors are there to see the levels of treatment, where you start from, whether you are started or you are going to begin treatment. If you are negative, prevention. We make sure that you stay safely in prisons and avoid things that will make you to get infected with HIV/AIDS. When it comes to sex, with our facilities, you know, sex is a private thing. As I talk here, I love sex. As you sit there, you love sex. If there was opportunity for you now here, you will have done it. You will have asked somebody, can we do it? Why can't you do it? It is about privacy. With the facilities we have, we can't allow that. But since we now have oil in the future, if we have very good facilities, even we have some facilities particular for that aspect, prisoners will enjoy their rights. Proscovia, we have not removed it, only that we can't afford to have it. So I think that one answers that. But because of the fact that each of HIV/AIDS we have taken very seriously, Commissioner General of Prisons, the top management, and the entire staff have embarked on welcoming any project, any initiative to fight HIV/AIDS in the prisons. Why? Yes, thank you. Because of our conditions, we can't afford to be reckless. On the side of staff, you have seen our barracks. We are congested. We don't have enough houses for staff and their children. You find a married person in a unit with children, probably adult children. Others share, although now the situation is changing. The barracks is congested. You can't afford to be reckless. What about the wards? As I told you, as I talk now, we have around 76,000 inmates. But the space available is for 20,000 prisoners. Can you afford to be reckless? You can't. A space for one prisoner is shared by 6. So if you allow somebody who has HIV, who has TB, who has to mingle with this, what will happen? There'll be a serious calamity in prisons. That's why we have those stringent measures. That's why we have open door policy. That's why we have now gone into recruiting doctors, civilian doctors. Even we are now recruiting uniformed doctors. We are recruiting social workers and many other staff. And that's why we welcome this kind of initiative. So this one brings me to just to appreciate. This is a very good project or a program, very good initiative to bring institutions and criminal justice system together so that we understand why prisoners are got from the community. Who get them from the community? It is the police. From police, whom they interact with, the DPP, the judiciary. Basically for us, we are at the end and tail. So we need to understand how do we protect these ones, the inmates themselves, and the entire society. So Proscovia, Office of DPP, you in particular, we thank you for involving Uganda Prison Service fully in this project. We thank you so much. And with the number of staff you have trained, I believe we shall go a long way to fight this scourge together. The second group of people I want to thank, basically you participants. When I came here, from the time I came up to now, everybody is very attentive. Very attentive. You see, you can go to a workshop, you find half of people are on their phones. Now this WhatsApp, everybody's on phone. I only see people getting a phone when they are going out to receive or an important message. Thank you very much. This one shows that you are really going to take the workshop very serious. You are going to implement what you have learned. For my staff, I've chosen you very, very carefully. I know who you are. I don't think you are going to disappoint us. I'm very sure with our sister forces, like the police. I also want to thank heads of institutions, the judiciary, the DPP, the police, and Uganda Prison Service. The heads to allow this project, to support this project. I really thank the heads of these institutions very much. Because without our clients, we can't be here. I can't be Assistant Commissioner General without prisoners. Actually, if one day the prisoners are not there, all of us will lose our jobs. So we need to protect. It is actually, prisoners are our granary. That's where we eat from. Don't misquote me there, the first estimate. What I'm saying that we are earning our salary because we are taking care of the inmates, not because we get something from them. So our heads of institutions, I thank them so much. Very importantly, I want to thank the funders, especially the Global Fund. I believe without funds, we're not going to have this kind of sitting. I'm already smelling some nice aroma of food. I believe we're not going to have food. I've got a package there, we're not going to have it. In short, what I'm saying is, let us thank the development partner, especially the Global Fund, for supporting this project. It is going to help the country. A country cannot grow if the population is sick, because health is wealth. You can't talk of economic development if you and I are sick. You cannot. So thank you so much, Global Fund. Yeah, also DPPA had already thanked you through Proscovia. Thank you very much for that. I was going to have a quarrel with you if you did not change your mind to call me back to officiate here. Really, when I get a call from her, I know that she and the DPP are empowering my officers. I'm very proud. It started with I think some 2 years back, you wanted some 6 officers, senior officers, to go to Mbarara. I was the one who selected them. They went, I think that was now when you wanted to develop the document. Then after that, another group, this another group. Because I know what it is. In short, I'm actually OC of prisoners, the whole country. Officer in charge of prisoners. Leave the East, the long title, Assistant Commissioner General Corrections. In short, you can just say OC prisoners in the country. I look at them as my children. You see, you go to a station, if you find sick people, you feel sick yourself. Kajoba knows. When I go to a station, I get sick people. I get prisoners with scabies. I get somebody covered in a blanket. At a hot day, at midday, somebody's covered. I call, what is happening? I want to know whether there are health officers in the unit. Why is a prisoner in the ward? Why not in the sick bay? This just to emphasize that we look at prisoners as our children. Commissioner General looks at prisoners as his children. Issues of human rights, where this one falls, we take it serious. That's why we cannot afford a staff torturing a prisoner. So we feel saddened from nowhere that my Commissioner General is sanctioned, cannot go to USA. Then I look at myself, all these efforts for what? I realize somehow you feel annoyed, but you can't do much. But these are realities. We try our level best to ensure that we keep prisoners very, very safely and humanely. And it is in our mission. This one now comes, let me just bring the issue of congestion here. I think Proscovia tried to answer it. Why are we having congestion in prisons? It's a very simple thing. I have 39,000 plus convicts. Then I have 36,000 plus remands. Out of the 36,000, I only have 17,000 plus capital offenders. But I have 19,000 plus petty offenders. I have 528 judgment debtors. What are these people doing in prisons? Judgment debtors alone, 500, is a whole unit. Why are they doing, what are they doing there? This is what I raised last time in Sheraton. Somebody has failed to pay you. You take him to prison. Where will he go? Where will he get the money? Where will she get the money to pay you back? Assistant Commissioner, Law Reform, I think that's where it goes. We need to reform some of these things. Committals. We need to revisit the law. How many years should somebody take after committal? After the person has been committed to High Court? How many years? It is open. People have stayed with us for 5 years, 7 years, even 8 years. the law needs to be revisited. You may find the 70s majority they are committals. Why should they be in a prison just continuously? But the good thing is, I hear, I think the organizations, I think judiciary, I think they're looking into that. I believe also law reform. I think that is the good news. But the pace needs to be enhanced such that these cases are heard very, very, very fast. Yes, plea bargain is helping us a lot, although somehow it was politicized. Prisons were being accused that we are conniving with the DPP, with the judiciary, that we tell prisoners to plead guilty. That one, for information, we don't do. Instead, we sensitize inmates. We tell them, if you know you are not guilty, please don't. You must be convinced that you are guilty. That's why you should go. That's when you should go for negotiations. But I think now the parliament has understood, and the general public has understood. The good thing also, the DPP, police, I think judiciary, they are also involving the victims, addressing them. The other day we were in Gulu. It was the Chief Justice himself. He gathered the victims and the relatives to explain what plea bargain is all about. I think at the end of it, they were happy. They understood. Otherwise, for them, they thought for us we are on the side of the culprits. Then community service. Yes, community service is helping because they have really passed very many, over 14,000 in a year. They are doing a good service for us. Then bail for petty offenders. That law needs to be revisited. You are a chicken thief. You have finished your mandatory period in prison. Over 60 days you are finished. You go to court to ask for bail. They want a substantive surety. Where will this guy on the streets get a proper surety? Somebody in a court, in a suit, where? That surety will never be got. You put stringent rules for this petty offender. Why? That's why I'm having over 19 petty offenders in the prisons. Incidentally, in the farms, there's no congestion. Congestion is on reception centers where convicts are. So together, I think these are things we have been singing. I am very sure that they have been worked on. Congestion, obviously, it will take time, but we are working together. We are working on that. Obviously, we are building new prisons, regional prisons, like Chitalia model. I hope if we are given funds, the congestion level will be reduced. I shouldn't conclude without thanking the panelists. It was a very, very good, very brilliant presentation. Very informative, and all of them were very, very knowledgeable. Thank you so much. In my language, I say awadi for Saharu. So the last time I interacted with somebody of Beatrice caliber was when I was still officer in charge of Arua prison. And I'm sure that was, some of you were not yet born. That was 2005. There was a lady, I don't know whether you know her, there was a lady called Rose Atibuni. Yes. She was heading an organization called Natuala. That time she had lived with HIV/AIDS for 20 years. So we are using her in all the workshops. When Uganda Prison Service started to sensitize people countrywide, we were using her as an example. And we'll call her to come and talk in workshops like this. And people really understood what HIV/AIDS really means. This of stigma or what, even I don't know why it is coming now. So when I see people like you, I know that you are really a capital and investment for us. Not for us, but for Ugandans. Because if they hear from you, you're on TV, they hear your views, I'm sure. Everything's about mindset. People's mindset will change. Thank you, the panelists. Then the fourth estate, although I started with you. Thank you for publishing this, because if we just sit at Fairway Hotel in this cool environment, we sit here and the information is not taken to the public, I think we will be wasting our time. My only prayer is you take facts. It is Tio here talking, not Akena Samuel. Akena Samuel, not like me. Eh? So the point is, thank you very much for publicizing this. Keep on doing good job. Organizations cannot exist without the fourth estate. It's appreciated. But let's be very, very professional. Yeah, lastly, the organizers, I think here I'm now repeating myself. Thank you very much for that. Dear people, I can't tire to thank you for this organization. It was a brilliant project you initiated. I'm happy it has been supported by heads of institutions of criminal justice institutions. Global Fund is supporting, and all of us who are supporting. We shall continue to be part and parcel of this initiative. Thank you very much. Probably for information, I think I've already said that. Otherwise, we're now coming to the end of the year. Do you have another workshop before Christmas? If it is there before, because today is just 13th, I will be ready to send my staff, and I will be ready to come. Otherwise, I wish all of you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Now I take this opportunity, the rare opportunity, to say that the criminal justice system institutions middle-level managers meeting held at Fairway Hotel this day, 13th of December 2023, is officially closed. For God in my country. Thank you very much.
Let us appreciate the Assistant Commissioner General of Prisons, Mr. Tio Milton, for his closing remarks. We truly Miss Geraldine and Miss Beatrice, I hope you're still around for a few minutes. We truly appreciate your collaboration with us, with the Office of the DPP, in so many respects, and particularly the Global Fund project. Without you, without the Uganda Prison Service, we wouldn't have come this far. So thank you very much. Let us give him another round of applause. I wanted us to take a group photograph before we go for lunch. That is why I wanted her. Please, yes. Yes, we're going to take it right in front here. Brian? We shall have the Assistant Commissioner General of Prisons at the front with the presenters. She's in a hurry. Please let us be very fast. Let's first have them alone, and then the rest of us can join.